Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Cone Racing League CRL, the home of the best league racing on PlayStation for the F1 2021 game. Tonight you join us for round 4 of Season 6 as 20 of the best drivers Cone has to offer go into the Texan desert on the outskirts of Houston to race around the Circuit of the Americas. I am your usual host and voice of the evening, I suppose you could say, CRL Freefall. But as always, I am joined by the man, the myth, the absolute legend, that is FRL Jamie, or Jamie Morris, or Jamie Indigo. Plenty of options there, mate.
Yeah, very nice to be back here for round 3 of the USA Grand Prix. Round 2 was obviously Italian Grand Prix with the sprint race as well, and round 1 was obviously back in Australia. But it's nice to be back in here in USA, a track where it's got plenty of opportunities to overtake as well, especially down in the middle sector. You can go side by side throughout the whole of that section and continue potentially all the way down to the penultimate corner. So we're about to see some thrilling action. And before we came into the session, or a few minutes into the session, I just saw a spot of raid, so I'm not going to be surprised if I see a mad dash of cars coming out. And there is a mad dash because I can see spots of rain appearing on my screen, and the first one out there is the little tree IoT head bumper. So being the first one out there, it's going to be helpful for him. Being the last one out there, which is a Red Bull, it looks like. I don't know what Red Bull that is, but that Red Bull and that McLaren needs to get out on the track as soon as possible. So as you can see there, the rain getting heavier and heavier as the track will get much more difficult. This track is difficult enough as it is in the first sector and the last sector as well. It be even more tricky now with a slippery surface.
Yeah, Red Bull in the pits. Jay Lawler, we'll get on to the sort of driver movements and shakes that have happened. He's, though, one big thing to note, sitting in the pits on a pair of intermediates. He obviously doesn't think this is good enough, or it's going to stay good enough for dries. DRS has been disabled.
You know what?
This could be a big shout from Jake in the Red Bull.
You know what? That Red Bull in 19th place, just waited out. Usually you'd be all mad dashing out there because head up, he almost spun there. But that Red Bull waiting there is actually proving very smartly, because then if the track conditions are not suitable for the dries, as DRS has been disabled, therefore everybody will have to come back in the pits. And J Law, despite being the last driver out there on the track, will be the first driver to set a lap time if these drivers do head back in the pits, because the rain's getting heavier, these softs will no longer be useful. We'll see what Hebompier does. Does he go in the pits? Yes, he does. So I expect a whole train of cars in the pit lane, which they do, including his AlphaTauri teammate. The Haas has gone round, and that is that Steiny? Marty's gone off the track when Nico Rosberg went off in 2015, but somebody has stayed out there, and I'm trying to find the Haas.
It's Relentless Vouter. And there's another car in front of them there. That is the Red Bull. That'll be Relentless Nathan. So Nathan and Vouter are choosing to do a lap on the soft. We'll see if any follow suit. I believe a Mercedes. That'll either be Marty or Pease. I think it is Pease. And an Alpine behind as well. That looks to be Ferg. And a Ferrari as well. A few drivers choosing to go for the softs.
Looking like this, Wouter and Nathan the first set. So not looking too bad, obviously, but J-Law being on those inters will possibly be quicker. So this is just a taster lap for Wouter and Nathan, judging by the conditions stay like this. But Wouter getting very close to Nathan the first sector, missing the apex slightly. And looks like he'll back out of that because the dirtier, disturbing... Nathan's crashed! Nathan's actually hit the wall. And I wonder, he hasn't lost his wheel, but he's lost his whole front wing there. Heart and mouth moment if that was worse for Nathan. Otherwise, he would have lost the whole of his left front tyre there. But luckily, he just lost his front wing. And he'll be able to continue this session, because if you do make it to Q2 with a lap time and you crash in Q1, you will get knocked out because you don't have a car to participate with. Just like what Robbie did back in Australia. Talk about Robbie. He's been on the podium twice this season, but sadly for him, he's not kept those 2 podiums. The only driver I know to start outside the top 10, they get the podiums, they get kicked off the podium both occasions, but hopefully he'll find himself on the podium for real this time.
Yeah, 3 races in, he's found himself on the podium at the end of the race on pure merit of driving ability in the top 3, but the steward's office, just with some little incidents throughout the race, taking that away. And how close this grid is, any sort of penalty at all, whether it be track or steward added, can have a big impact in your position. Alternatively, I believe Mark, we know in Australia he jumped up onto the podium as well. I believe in France, with Nathan getting that late penalty as well. So, one hand Robbie getting robbed by penalties, losing out on those 2 podiums. Mark, on the other hand, taking full advantage of the drivers around about and ahead of him, making little mistakes like that and jumping up. He finds himself in a strong position after these few races. Poor showing in Italy, but we'll discount that. Could be chance for 3 out of 4 for him, or could it be redemption chance for Robbie? Of course, there's plenty of other drivers here on the grid looking to stake their claim. One of them is the new man in the Red Bull, Jay Lawler. He takes the place of the outgoing ISRL Knight in the Red Bull full-time. Other changes. FRL rotation, or gotation as we like to call him, takes dual seat in the McLaren, and Jaime PSV taking DeRoy in the Alfa Romeo. But Jay Lawler again, very scrummy over the line, spins it and loses the front wing, but a 1:44.8 the first lap time on the board, and even looking to struggle on those intermediates, it seems.
Indeed, he just lost traction coming out the final corner. This was his first lap on those intermediate tyres, so everybody on their first lap will be struggling, but as the laps go on, they'll get better as the track will start rubbing in on those intermediate, because doing more than one, you can do obviously more than one lap on these inters and wet conditions as well, because the inters, they don't heat up as much and they get grippier during the session as well. So if the conditions stay like this, I don't expect rain in the race, because obviously you only get like three or four sets of inters and 1 or 2 sets of wets in the race. But J-Lo then losing the full wing, he was the last man to come out of the track, but the first man to set a lap time. And we'll get more drivers there on their out laps ready to do a flying lap. Let's go on ball with somebody. Is that Jaime who's closest, or Hebompier? Hebompier has invalidated his lap in the first sector. Jaime going a bit wide coming out of turn 2. Now coming into this first section here, hitting all the curves here. I wonder how confident these drivers will be. I wonder if they've done any wet practice whatsoever, because I certainly know I wouldn't have done any wet practice here in USA, because it tends to be dry, but I know there could be a few wet races as well. But Jaime negotiated his way. Oh, he almost lost it as I say that. Coming out of turn 9, just getting on the curve, picking up the power. Now, coming into turn 11, this could be the most difficult one in my opinion, because slow speed corner, very difficult to pick up the throttle, and he manages it nicely by short shift as well. The rear end just stepping out a bit. In MotoGP, you usually go to the left-hand side of the track, but in Formula 1 cars, they stay in the middle or the racing line. Now hitting turn 12, heavy braking zone, braking at the 100-meter board here, taking a lot of curb on the inside, which he does do. You can cut you can cut that curb, but not too much, obviously, with the invalidation. Oh, he almost lost it again. This will be the most tricky part. It's difficult enough here in the dry, but in the wet, it could be even more difficult. Look at that. He's in 5th gear and already losing the car, and he goes out wide, takes a very wide entry, but that'll compromise him a lot as well, losing a lot of time as rotation has retired in the pit lane, so we won't see him throughout the rest of Q1. But Jaime then coming around the triple right hander here, now making his way through the penultimate corner. It's very important not to go out wide like Indy cars do. Now making his way around the final corner then. Let's see what lap time the Alfa Romeo will set. And Liam goes quickest with a 44.0 as Jaime second 0.3 slower with a 45.3.
Yeah, a little disparity there on the lap times there. Different drivers, maybe set up. I think going by that, we could be in for a wet race potentially. Maybe some drivers having a little bit more downforce on the car, better suited to these conditions. Rotation though, just to jump in correctly there, not actually retiring in the pits. He lost it at the start of sector 2, just in the left downhill before the DRS activation, only assuming spinning out either on the curb or just under traction hitting the wall on the left hand side. But the lap time's starting to crawl in. I bet you there's a few of them wishing that the clouds were a little 2, 3, 5 minutes out further away, been the first out and got a lap out on the softs, because a lot of them really struggling on these inters. Liam though, the man at the top, LOI Liam Carag, I believe I'm saying that right.
Yes, you are.
Is brilliant. He's the man at the top, standing reserve tonight in the place of Mr. BT in that Williams. So one to look out for Liam. He is making his debut, I believe, not full-time seat, sorry, his debut race even as a reserve for CRL tonight. Very, very quick driver, of course. LOE, I believe he races in quite a few leagues and been a member of various esports teams. So definitely one not to put out in the mix. Another one not to put out in the mix, Relentless Peas. He's currently on his first flying lap coming in to the final sector, cutting that curb nicely, like you said, that left-hander. One that's, I feel it's very pinnacle to your lap. You've got to get a nice wide entry, cut that curb as much as you can without invalidating. There's a little bollard there, rule of thumb is, clip the bollard and no more, as Liam goes even faster, 1:43.6. He's currently 8 tenths quicker than his nearest rival, Andreas, in the Alpine. Mark not far behind, but Pease one to shake up the order. I have had little tips that himself, Relentless Nathan and Kurun are the ones to watch tonight. Pease is going to cross the line. And it's P2 at 144.1, still 5 tenths adrift of Liam in that Williams.
One thing you need to know about Liam, that he loves the wet conditions, so that's why he's up there in P1. He did 2 consecutive lap times. Obviously, having more knowledge about the track, knowing where to push, knowing where the limits are, he was able to continue to do a better lap and go a few tenths quicker than his previous best one. So Liam there, very comfortable at the top of the pecking order here. And I went to board with a few drivers there, just flicking left and right and thereabouts, and they're all fighting with the car, mainly in Sector 1 and Sector 3 here. They're all struggling, and you can see they're all fighting with the traction issues as well. Pease in second place, Robbie in P3. Pease is on another lap, he entered turn 9. Trying to see who's closest to the line here. Obviously, they're all doing more than one lap, whereas in Q1, typically, if it's a dry session in Q1, you'll see fastest guys on P1 and P2, P3 all retiring, ready for Q2, and you'll see the bottom 5 that time. But everybody is out there so far with 7 minutes and 20 seconds left to go. It'll be very interesting if the weather changes again in Q2. If it doesn't change in Q2 and stays like this, then obviously that tyre rule of having to start on your fastest lap on the tyres you set it with, as Lee goes quickest again by about 4 tenths. It was a 43.6 last time, so it's a 43.2. That's 4 tenths. But the Q2 rule, start on the tyre you set the fastest lap with, might not apply if it stays like this and it's a dry race.
Absolutely. I think looking at the conditions, I don't see easing off anytime soon. Of course, the driver's doing lap after lap, maybe hoping for a little bit of ease, as Nathan's found a nice little bit of pace. Still 8 tenths adrift of Liam after setting his improved lap time, but a 44.0. P's coming in behind with a 44.3. So these guys, maybe first few laps, just finding the grip, testing the waters a little bit, quite literally, to see where the grip is and what kind of lap times they can put in. I'm having a hard time here getting the camera on the right person, whoever's coming through the lap. Ferg, he's about to finish his lap, a 144.2. So a lot of them, the low 44s, high 43s at the top of the grid. But Liam, on that 43.2, just in his own world at the moment. Of course, doesn't matter who's P1 in this session, it's all about who's P16, 17, 18 and 19. One of them will, of course, be FRL rotation in the McLaren. He's he has spun out, lost part of his suspension rig and is unable to continue. But 4 more drivers yet to be confirmed joining him out in Q1 and seeing who'll go to Q2. Interesting though, the way these, like you're saying there, the way these guys are fighting the car. These aren't just your average day league racers, players that play the game casually. These guys know what they're doing and they're having to fight the car like this even in inter condition. Suggests to me that drier setup, dry race.
Yeah, that's possible as well, because I know people are using more than one set of speed. Ideally, you want to be using one, saving them for Q2 and Q3 and all that. But yeah, that looks like the straight line speed is quite normal. Obviously, you don't have the DRS in these wet conditions and the fighting in these tricky parts of the lap as well. So it could be a dry race. And information on Walter, he evaluated on his last lap. He was actually going to set a 43.7, but that would have been a P3 because he set a 7.30. Was P set a 43.700 bang on, but it's about to cross the line now as P's. And can he go quicker? Yes, he can. It's a 43.4. They're getting closer and closer as well to Liam Parag in P1 there. So P's looking very comfortable as well in these conditions. I know the pad users love the wet conditions because obviously traction as well is very good for the pad users as well. People in the wheel users don't suffer too bad, but obviously ideally being on the pad is much better in the wet conditions. Where's Stardy then? Stardy in the Haas is going to come in the pit lane then, so he's not going to go for another run. 4 minutes and 30 seconds left to go in this session. Het Bompje out there in P15 on a lap. 3 drivers have a set lap time is Marty. I see Marty struggle quite a lot. He did spin a couple of times previously before, and Het Bompje then losing traction, but he goes 2.5 tenths quicker because he's on the cusp of elimination if Jaime, Griff, and Marty and Nathan don't improve, or in fact set a lap time. Marty has set a lap time, but it's 45.5 only in P17, so he definitely needs to improve that as well. Where's Jaime? He's crossed the line up into P12 he goes, so he's safe at the moment. Stardy's on the cusp of elimination. He could possibly get knocked out by Het Bompje because Het Bompje is improving. He needs to make it way around the 2 corners very safely as well. Very easy to lose the car around here. We saw Danny Kvyat lose at the penultimate corner in 2015. Het Bompje crosses the line and just goes P15, so Het Bompje is still in danger, but he puts Stardy in the drop zone.
Yeah, pipping out Steiny there by 800, well, just shy of 800s. Interesting thing you picked up there as well, the advantage, maybe, I don't know if that's the right word, the ease ability to gain the correct traction just with the peripherals, being on the pad helps. I must be honest, I really do love this track, purely because, yes, you have the big traction zones that do tend to favour your pad users a bit more, but you've also got turns like the S's, where wheel is heavily favoured to get that precision through it. So for me, I find it is a very balanced track over the course of a full lap. Obviously, there'll be different parts of the track that suit different peripherals a little bit better. In the wet, maybe a little bit more leaning towards the pad, but the guys in the wheel are obviously quick enough to compensate for that. It does balance itself out. And Jay Lawlat, we're on board with him. He just went purple sector 2 apparently. He's only just under a 10th up in his time, so I don't know if that's the usual Cody's glitch. Another glitch you might have noticed on the left hand side of your screen, I don't know if it's just me, Jamie, but a few cars saying that they're on 0 lap inters when I know for a fact they've been doing about 2 or 3.
Yeah, it's me as well, mate. Me as well. I get that.
We do love the good old Cody's glitch. They've only been at this game 11 years, older than some members of the racing community, I must say. Jay Lawler crosses the line, goes P10, a 144.3, 6 tenths clear of the drop zone. As somebody just shot up the order. Was that Vouter or?
It was Relentless Nathan, P20 to P8.
Relentless Nathan, a 44.1. That puts him, you would almost say, firmly in the safe zone. Boompier in the danger zone in the pits, as is Marty. Both of them very short of time to get round, and in fact, if they don't manage to get clear of the pit exit within the next few seconds, it might just be curtains for them. Steiny on an outlap, and Tigriff, the two to watch. Jaime, Mark, Jay Lawler potentially in danger here, although Jay Lawler looking safer and safer by the second as those two cars of Boompier and Marty don't get out on track. But we'll go on board with Tigriff here at the moment. He's the man in 19th for only a 152.2, so not really getting a clean lap in as of yet. We'll see how his sector 2 and 3 go. I believe that's his teammate getting out of the way, getting that sharp left-hander again. Another tricky traction zone where we've seen cars lose it before in the past, and in this triple right-hander, very reminiscent of a mirrored version of turn 8 at Turkey. Into the second to last corner, that sharp left corner. Very easy to lose it, take too much of the curb invalidation, run too wide and invalidate round the final corner and up to the line to set his first valid proper lap, and it is only a 44.7. He does have battery, he does have tyres to go again, but it looks like he's pulling out of this lap, and that will be unfortunately curtains for his qualifying session.
Marty is out there on an outlap, but he's only got 35 seconds to go, so I'm not quite sure I'll make it for another lap time. But when you're bored with De Griff there, his teammate Rudy actually spun coming in that second, and that's why he was off the track. He was 300s down in the middle sector, and he just lost the car on traction, so that's why he ended up in the grass there. But pivotal moments now in these closing stages of qualifying. The tree is also knocked out. He's not going to set a lap time because he's retired. I'm not quite sure if he crashed on track or just retired in the pit lane. He did retire. I don't think he had enough time to go out there again. But what's Steiny doing out there? Steiny 4 tenths down in that middle sector, and I don't think he has doesn't have enough time to go for another lap time. So that could be him calling it quits for the day. But yeah, where's Marty? Marty can't go for a lap. He's done now. Who else is out there? Because I know a few drivers want to improve their lap times to try and get a feel for this track.
Steiny, sorry to interrupt, Steiny showing us a little bit of drifting there around the long right hander, and that will be his qualifying session over the back end, completely stepping out of him. What a lovely, lovely shot. I'm sure some of our graphical editors can make good use of that image, but that will be it for Q1. Sorry to interrupt there, Jamie.
Look at P15, Relentless Nathan. It says a 43.8. I think he's done a rugby and crashed out in Q1. He has done that.
He definitely has. That's what. Yep.
I saw a Red Bull stationary on the full map in the first sector. I'm not quite sure if it was just spun or if he was ready to go back on track, but he's actually crashed out, and that's cost Nathan a lot. What position would he have been if he didn't crash? 43.8. He would have been in P6. So Relentless Nathan then pushed a bit too hard on those intermediates, and he has unfortunately crashed out. So 6 drivers will be knocked out of Q1.
Yeah, the 6 going out across the 5 on times rotation, unable to get a lap in due to terminal damage will start P20th. Joining him on the 10th row is, of course, Marty in the Mercedes. Steiny and the Little Tree Bumpe take up the second to back row. Of course, row 9 in P17 and P18 respectively. Tigriff, P16, would have been the last to be eliminated. Relentless Nathan, technically making it through Q1, but of course, due to the amount of damage sustained on his car, unable to compete in in Q2, so effectively takes that P15 spot for qualifying. And that is Q1 nice and done. The man on top, though, the Irishman from LOI, Liam Carragh, showing the guys how to do it early on. The gap at one point was, 9/10. P's Bouter bring it down a lot. Nathan up there in P4 with a 143.7, half a second adrift of Liam at the moment. Shortly followed by Rudy, Andreas Ferg, Mark, AJ Wuhan, the two-time podium misser Robbie, IRTC, but Relentless Jeroen down there in P12. Not one we really expect to be seen in that kind of position. J. Laura, the new boy in the Red Bull, in 13th, and Jaime, the new boy in the Alfa Romeo, round off the 14 that are making it through. Of course, Nathan crashing out and unable to qualify further up in these sessions. Tigriff, Bimpe, Steiny, Marty, and Rotation all exiting us in Q1 due to insufficient lap times.
It's a shame for Het Bob here because I do believe that's his second elimination in Q1 this season, so that's the second time he's been knocked out. Sadly for him. Hopefully, he picks up podiums regularly as well. He's one of those drivers that on his good day can be really up there, but it's not gone well for him whatsoever in this early part of the season. So hopefully he can find his form, and whatever he's struggling with, hopefully he can fix that and get back up there, because Het Bobbia is a really good driver. So is Stanley, so is the rest of them actually, but it just sometimes can be the track dependent or the car dependent, setup dependent, or whatever it is. One time can be really good, and one time you just don't have the day for it. Like C4 Gamer as well, he's another one that can be up there on the podium. He's actually won a race as well. I think he's a two-time race winner here in CRL. He won his first race in his first season back in Britain. It was actually his third race he won, and he won another one back in Baku when he held off Javu Vizas. So C4 Gamer is also experienced up there as well. And now Q2, it says half of them are on the wets and the other ones on the intermediates. I did notice that the track conditions were getting much worse as the rain was starting to pour down on circuits. So track conditions are actually getting worse. It looks like these drivers will have to suffer through the whole of qualifying 1, 2, and 3 in the wet conditions. That could really mix up the grid there in the race, because could really spice things up. If people who have the most experience in the wet could be really up there, could be in a good position for the race later on in this session.
Absolutely. Maybe a few of them looking to learn from J. Law last time out, choosing to wait a little bit. He is still in the pits again on the wets, and maybe some of them thinking, go for the safer option, follow suit. Other ones maybe hoping it's just dry enough for these inters, I can just push out a lap, get a good time in, because we all know, obviously, the drier the conditions, the softer the compound are, the more smooth, shall we say, the compound of the tyre when it comes to dries, inters and wets, the faster it is for pure grip round the track. So it'll be interesting to see how these inter guys get on that are going out early doors, likes of Mark, Rudy, Wouter and AJ Wuhan, if he does leave the pit on those inters, get on against the remaining 10 cars. Of course, the top 10 here going through into Q3 for the pole position shootout. And of course, a key thing to note, Q2 being set on wet and inter tyres at the moment, unless suddenly the clouds part and we get a nice bit of Texan sun, it will be a free tyre choice for the guys in the top 10 this week. That tyre rule not applying, and Jaime having tyre problems of his own, losing a little bit of grip on the exit of the final corner there, as he's the first to start his lap. Wouter on the inters not too far behind. Looking at the kind of overall how this season, speaking of Wouter, of course, he finds himself top of the pops on 83 points. Relentless Jeroen, though, 82 points. 1 point adrifted him with Anjan or Andreas in 64 points in third place. Mark was top last time out. Finds himself down to P4 with a poor performance in Italy. And Tigriff, one of the guys eliminated in Q1. This just goes to show you that the guys, even though they're out in Q1, they are not slow by any means. It is very much marginal between these drivers, and sometimes it can just be who performs it on the night and who has the slight track preference. He's in P5 in the championship, and he's not even in the top 15 of this qualifying session. It's mental, this grid.
Tells you the unpredictability of this grid as well. Midfield and the top guys are so tight as well, so it's really nice to see a bit of versatility in the grid there. But Jai, I'm on board with him. I think Robbie spun on his outlap. I went on board with him, and he was just sorting his car out. He spun here in the middle sector, did Robbie. That's where Jai is pushing. Now goes a little bit wide, and traction is really crucial as well here, especially in the wet conditions. Drying up is hard, but in the wet, he slightly misses the curb and the left-hander there. Now coming through the triple right-hander here. Let's see how he experiments through the throttle. You can see him just experimented, how much throttle he could take, shifting up into 7th gear there with his penultimate corner. Hit the apex, don't go out too wide through here, which you see plenty of people do in Q1. Now makes his way around the final corner. Be careful, be patient with the throttle here. And it's going to be a 48.7. So it looks like the track conditions have got worse, judging by that lap time. And more drivers about to cross the line. Then we've got an LP, which is Williams actually with Giroud with a 47.8. Rudy up into P3 on the inters, so the inters are no longer useful as Andreas goes quickest by half a second ahead of Giroud. Andreas was up there, he was P6 I believe in the first qualifying session, so watch out for him, he's also a podium sitter. As Liam Karag goes P1 with a 46.9, look at that, 4 tenths immediately quicker than everybody else. So the intermediates then, I think Ferg's on the intermediate says on that graphic there. No, he's on the wets. I'm on the best lap time. Sorry about that. But the wet times are quicker than the inters. So I think everybody has to change over to the intermediate compound tyres.
Yeah, Mark there, he was on the inters as well. 48.6, only beating Jaime and Pease, who I suspect had a little bit of trouble on their laps, judging by the sort of second or so gap to the guys in there. But that just shows you between Q1 and Q2. We were getting the low 43s in Q1. Now the track is, in theory, more rubbered in. The guys have had a little bit of sort of dialing in with their lap times. And they're already 5 seconds adrift. These conditions are not getting any better. They'll be hoping, some of them will be hoping, I suppose, that it does improve before the race commences. One man that will not is Liam Karag. Top of the podium again when it comes to qualifying sessions at the moment. Like you say, 4 tenths clear. Well, just shy of 4 tenths, shall we say. Really showing his ability in the wet here tonight, and making a strong debut, I would say. We see a lot of guys come first time into CRL, maybe a bit unprepared, underappreciating of just how good this grid is. He's one that's obviously knows how good this grid is, and he's out there to perform. Jacob on a lap, though, one that is looking to perform as well. He's had some solid performances over the last few seasons. Definitely a driver I like to see improving. I know him very well, get on with him very well, and one that constantly seems to be improving. Speaking of improving though, Pease, a 46.8, the first person to knock Liam off the top step tonight. I'm sure Liam won't let that go lying down as Jacob turns the sharp left-hander at the end of the straight. That car, even at the midpoint of the little straight after the corner, getting very squirmy, very, very anxious on the throttle there. As he gets to this tight left-hander again, a difficult traction zone, keeping it nice. A little jiggle of the car as it goes through the acceleration forces in this tight right-hander. Barely getting to about 80% throttle there until you're near enough at the exit. And again, look at that, just nice bit of throttle control. Really needed in these conditions here, and these drivers showing us exactly how it's done. He does round the final corner, almost crosses the white line using maximum track space, but only managed a 47.6, so 8 tenths off the top at the moment. Does find himself in the top 10, but with 5 guys below him on the pits, some of them doing inter tyres on their first run. I don't expect him to stay there unless he's got a little bit more time in his locker somewhere.
Oh, just crossed the line just behind AJ. He went up into P9 with a 47.8. So drivers on the cusp of elimination is Mark. He's got Rudy behind him. If Rudy set his best lap time on the inters, in fact they both did, Mark and Rudy. So I think they've got more to show. And also C4 Game as well, who hasn't set a lap time just yet. He validated his lap time. But on this graphic, it says C4 Gamer is on the intermediates. Go on board with him. He actually is on the intermediates. So that's very interesting because he was on the wets before and he thinks the intermediates is now better. He did a lap on the wets, but he validated it, and that's why he went back in the pit lane. But let's see then, are the intermediates better? The track conditions look to me to stay the same as they were early in this qualifying session, but if he's made the right call, could find himself up the pecking order. So we'll see if C4 Gamer's decision is right. If he doesn't think that the track conditions are good enough for the Inters, he's got a lot of time left to go back to the pit lane and put on the set of wet conditions. Might be out there just for a taste, but P's going for the lap on these set of Inters. So is Liam Carrag as well, so P's and Liam Carrag following each other there. Nathan's about to cross the line, and Nathan goes quickest with a 46.8. He goes quickest by 500, so very good lap time there from Nathan. Not quite sure what happened to P's. P's invalidated it, so he would up going for another run. Berg is coming to the final corner. He's invalidated as well. Giroud is on the straight. He went 3/10 quicker in the first sector. First sector alone, 3/10 quicker. So already found a lot of time as he makes his way towards 12. A heavy braking zone. Take a lot of curb on the entry. Don't use the outside curb. Coming into the final sector, 3/10 up. So where would this put him? About 5th place, unless he finds more time, of course. But he's only got this one lap to do it because he's running out of fuel. So we're going to make this lap count as he makes his way through the left-hander here. Very steady, picking up the throttle there. Be very patient, just squeeze the throttle. Now comes this triple right-hander. See multiple people use 5th, 6th or 7th gear through here. Use the 6th. Now come into the Puddlesbrook corner here. Flick it in. Avoid that curve on the exit. Well, he actually uses all of it. You want to use all of it in bats. Now coming into the final corner, hit the apex here. A bit of hesitation on entry. Get back on the throttle. Wheel spin. And he goes up into P4. So we found a bit more time in that final sector, and he goes into P4 with a 47.0, so looks like he's safely through. Meanwhile, Mark's on a lap time, so is Rudy, so they're both in the first sector at the moment. C4 Gamer is actually going to do a lap time, but he's just invalidated it through the first sector, so we could get a reference point to what the first sector was like for C4 Gamer. So he's committed at the moment on the intermediates, but he needs to make his mind up because time's running out for him, and he needs to make his mind up whether the inters or the wets are better. Liam goes quickest.
I would say that's as much indication as I would need that the wets are definitely quicker. Validating through that tight technical turns, I suppose, 3 through 9 almost, the S section. A lot of tight, quick succession corners there, and if you're not on the right tyre, they are not going to be a whole load of fun. And it obviously seems to be where he's invalidated. Mark, though, on his second flying lap. First lap, a 48.6. 5/10 drift of Jaime in P9. But he is getting a little bit of a toe there, I would imagine, down the straight. Coming to the tight left-hander off turn 12. Quickly opens up to turn 13 and 14. Very tight together, these two. He is 8/10 up on his best time at the end of Sector 2. That would be enough to see him move potentially into P2 at the moment. Of course, there's probably going to be more time in this final sector here. It's all about nailing the lap time for him and seeing if he can improve upon it and keep the car nice and steady through the tight, the long right-hander, penultimate corner of turn 19 until he hits turn 20, the last and arguably one of the most tricky corners in some of these conditions. Getting the car nice and straight, power down, up to the line. It can only manage P5, a 1:47.074. Still well within the top 10, but maybe not quite what he was on for after that end of the second sector.
One driver who needs to try and get himself in the top 10 is J Law. J Law has just invalidated it in that first sector, so we've got 3 minutes and 10 seconds left. Walter is out there somewhere on the track. He hasn't set a lap time just yet, but he's making his way through the middle sector now. Is a 10.6, so let's see that purple middle sector it says. As he makes his way through the difficult part of that third sector, Liam Carrag has retired knowing he's well and truly safe. I don't think anybody's going to beat that lap time unless, of course, they can find it or the track conditions get improved, but I don't think it will. C4 Gamer, however, has switched back to the wet conditions, so he desperately needs to get out there and set a lap time. I'm not quite sure how many minutes are left on the board for him, but hopefully... Oh, Walter almost lost it, coming out of the Puddlesbrook corner there, just getting at the curb. Now coming through the final corner, all he needs to do is find a lap time that can get himself in the top 10. And let's see what this lap time is going to be. It's up into P5. And Nathan JB has also retired knowing that he's safe at the moment. Rudy in the middle sector has improved by 6/10. He's on the cusp of elimination. I believe AJ's out there, about to start his second flying lap. Here comes Rudy then coming towards the penultimate corner then. He is up. Needs to be careful not to invalidate. There he is, they're coming through that final corner. Missing it slightly. He's getting a good exit cut out of here, and he will cross the line now to go up into P7. Where's C4 Gamer? He is on an outlap, so I believe C4 Gamer will only get one lap on the board. One lap only. So he has to make this car because he's been exploring on the intermediates, and that time loss, or that time loss, should I say, has cost him a lot. He only has one lap to do it, so that one lap has to count, otherwise he'll get knocked out. Sadly for him. Robbie up into P2. He's about to cross the line now, not to improve. Where is everybody else? AJ on that straight. Did the track conditions look a bit better to you?
That's what I'm just wondering. Andreas in P9 at the moment, he's on the cusp of elimination. And he's jumped out. He's on an lap on the intermediate. So maybe one to watch out for on that final lap here. He's coming through the second to last corner. We'll get a little shot on board, see how they're looking. He is taking it very easy, but of course, he will be prepping for this final run. Seeb, another person that's going to be prepping for this final run. A lot of pressure on your shoulders here. When you've got one shot in conditions like this, you're really fighting the car for every corner. It's going to be so easy just to run a bit tight, run a bit wide, light up the tyres a little bit. Speaking a little bit wide there, Valter getting a nice drift around the final corners. He comes into the pits. Good lap from him though, even with that mistake in the second to last corner on his lap, losing a few tenths. Jacobs about to cross the line. EJ Wuhan in the AlphaTauri crosses the line for a 1:47.505. Improves by a tenth. He does have time for another lap, but he has to be on it right now if he's going to have any chance of making it to Q3. Jay Lawler does his best lap of the day, or the lap of the session, sorry, with a 1:47.067, just inside that top 10 by 500ths and no more. So he is really putting his faith in everybody else.
C4 Gamer has advantage. That is it for him. Being on the intermediates has cost him a lot. And what about Andreas then? He's on the straight. I'm not quite sure how many tenths he's up or down, but we'll find out in a moment.
Looks to be half a second down, or half a second adrift of his best time at the moment. We'll find out in a second, like you say.
Yeah, 3 tenths down. Is it really worth completing this lap? He's got to finish the lap. You never know what could be in store in this final sector here, as the track conditions do look to get better. So why not? Might as well improve. See what lap time he can find. He needs about 2 tenths to try and get himself in that top 10.
Oh, and Ferg, sorry, Tim, not Ferg on his final lap, just rounded the final corner, lit the tyres up a little bit too much and lost the back end. He's going round and I don't know if that was intentional, but has spun out and hit the pit entry. His teammate Andreas, I apologise, doing the same thing. So that last corner, very, very tricky. The Alpine's definitely struggling with it.
Saying that though, he was only a tenth down, and plus he would have been found more time if he'd made that spin. So if there was a bit more time in the session, he could be one of the ones that benefited from that. But sadly for him, at the wrong time, and AJ gone wide does not invalidate, and he crosses the line now, doesn't improve with 1.3 seconds down anyway. So Andreas said sadly for him, didn't go quite as well. Giant crossed the line to go P8, but he's lost his front wing as well. These drivers look like they're struggling in that final sector. So drivers who are knocked out then is Andreas, both Alpines P11 and P12 occupying the 6th row of the grid. AJ in P13 and C4 Gamer, sadly for him, down in P14.
Yep, just the 4 being eliminated with Relentless Nathan unable to compete due to thermal damage to his car in Q1. Of course, normally at this time of the day, we'd be speaking about, Andreas, Ferg. They're not in a bad position, just on the cusp of the top 10, but they will have the free tyre choice. This won't apply this week. Wet conditions mean a free choice for all of our top 10 drivers here. Those, of course, being J-Lola, Jaime, Relentless Jeroen, Relentless Marker, Relentless Valter, Relentless Peas. That's a Connect 4.5 right there. CRL, Nathan GB in P4 with Robbie picking up a podium again in qualifying for this session at least. Will he keep it in the race? Time will tell. He's not had the best luck with that, but anything can happen this week again. Rudy in P2 showing a good pace, and Liam again top of the session. But look at those top 3, less than a tenth between them. And if that is any indication of what we've got in store for this Q3, I think it's going to be a bit lightning and a bit mental, shall we say. I think that's a very good word to describe this. Mental.
So very, very tight at the top, and very interesting what Liam can do. Can he get a pole position on his appearance here? And it's definitely intermediate conditions now, so it'll be very interesting to see what the drivers do there. Q3, these drivers then, very peak of the game. Let's see if they excel. Can they take pole position, all 10 of them? Could be anybody, in fact. It could be Robbie Pease, anybody of those top 10. They're all very quick as they immediately come out the garage. Is the Aston Martin, that is Robbie. Williams coming out the grid, so it'll be very interesting to see what they do in this Q3 session then. When it starts raining towards the area, that could be a factor in Q3. But I think, judging by this, I think it'll be definitely be a dry race because I've not seen a session where it's been a full wet to qualify session that it's a full wet race or something like that. I think it'll definitely be dry in the race.
Yeah, I would agree with you there. This quali session definitely drying up, so expect to see the lap times start to tumble the longer the session goes in. Of course, these cars driving around with those grooved intermediate tyres, they'll clear water off that track. That's what the grooves are, of course, designed to do. The tyres will heat up a little bit if they're doing back-to-back tracks. They'll start to push the limit, and of course the rubber will sink into the track. One car though, Nathan JB in the pits, was on the way, but he's just changed it and made me look like a fool onto the intermediates there quick. Maybe just having a look at the delta time to see if it's worth having a go. But I think we've got to, Jamie, I think we've got to ride on board for the first lap of Q3 with Mr. Liam Carragh himself. He's put himself top of the last two sessions. It'd be rude not to see how it's done.
Yeah, and also in the comment section is definitely a dry race, so that's our questions answered there. But in the comment section, hello Ben, hello Jacob, hello Nathan, hello Harvey Lees, how are you doing, mate? Long time no see. Hello Kaylin. And Jacob says, predicted it'll be Inters at the end of Q2 and didn't stick with my gut, another qualified bottled, says Jacob Booth. But hopefully it'll turn out to be a good race for him. And yeah, we'll ride on board with Liam Carragh then, as you said, topping both qualifying sessions there. Master in the wet, but can he replicate it in the dry? We're about to see. In Q3, the pressure's piled up because if you know you got the pace in Q1 and Q2 just to get through, then you don't feel that pressure. But coming into Q3, where you have to perform, you have to do your absolute best, this is where the pressure can really get to. We'll see who manages the pressure really, really well, because I've known drivers, including myself, which is sad to say, have bottled it in Q3 because the pressure has got to them and got to me. And when you know you could do a really good lap, but that pressure just sinking in there, the nerves kicking in, and you just make one little mistake, which you haven't done at all in Q1 or Q2 because of that pressure just soaking in there. But we'll see how the drivers manage it. We're born with Liam Carragh, coming through turn 3, bit wobbly through there, coming into turn 4, now turn 5, hitting every apex. Look at that, the way he takes it. One big blow with the steering, downshifted, upshifted to get that extra rotation as well. Into 4th gear we go through here. Similarly, go down to 3rd gear. Yes, he does. Into here. The short shift back into 4th. Some people do it to 5 just to minimise that wheel spin. And there we go. Then we're coming down into turn 11. Braking, typically at the 100-meter board, I think is the same in the wet. Kiss the apex. You want to take a late apex through there, get it back on the throttle, just experimenting it, squeezing it, and DRS will be enabled. But obviously, we're in the wet conditions here, so no DRS at all in this whole qualifying session. And here we go then, down at the turn 12, heavy braking, so braking at the 100-meter board. I think he broke before the 100-meter board, in fact. Hit the apex on the entry, not taking as much curb as he would have wanted to do there. And an 8.8 to the middle sector, also hitting the apex, kiss it very nicely. Then experimenting with the throttle through here, trying to brake traction as much as you can. Into this left hand, another slow speed corner, so traction is also very important to gain and brake as well, which he does do. Into the triple right hander we go then, playing with the throttle, seeing what he can get away with. Obviously, Robbie's going to do the first man set at lap time, so we'll see what lap time Robbie will set. And it's going to be a validation, I think, as Liam Carragh makes his way towards the final corner, booking it up very nicely, getting back on the throttle. And this lap time is going to be a 43.4, what we saw in Q1. So, can anybody match it or beat it? Walter coming around the final corner now. Well, let's see what lap time he sets. It's going to be a 44.0. Next across the line is a Williams. That is Javroon Bizzer. About to make her way across the line. 3rd place, Rudy next across the line. 4th place, and one of the Alfa Romeos next across the line. That is Bok. And he's going to make his way across the line now to go P1. Wow, something I did not expect, judging by the previous qualifying session. His teammate Jibe in P4. So Alfa Romeo there, P1 and P4. Mark pulling out the bag at the very last moment because I didn't expect it whatsoever, especially in Q1 and Q2. I know Mark's a good driver, but judging by Q1 and Q2, did not expect him to be on pole position. So Mark there, showing it at the very, very last moment. We're just waiting for the Aston Martins. Robbie has invalidated it, and Nathan's on an outlap. So wait for Robbie. He's invalidated on his 2nd lap in a row, has Robbie. So
yeah, back-to-back conditions for the Aston Martin or Robbie. Like you see, maybe that little bit of bottling coming in just with the added pressure. But Mark, absolutely out of nowhere. Fair play to him there. I was thinking there when the first lap time started rolling in, you know, we had Liam, then I think it was Wouter, Jeroen, and Pease coming in, that he had that free tint cushion that this was going to be just another session dominated. But he's got a bit of competition in his hands here. This is going to be a proper good qualifying session here with these two going at it, and hopefully a few more are going to be joining as they start to push the limits of the track.
So Robbie's going for a third consecutive lap time, it seems. So he's about to cross the line now to go for his third flying lap. Obviously it says 0 for me at the moment. No, it doesn't. I was on the wrong tyre graphic. But waiting for his Aston Martin teammate to cross the line, which is Nathan. He's going to start his out lap. But Mark's improving in the middle sector. Where's Liam Carrag? He's going to start another flying lap. He went for a push, cool down, and push. Mark is going for a second consecutive lap time. We've got more drivers cross the line now to start a flying lap or finish it. And somebody's moved up. That was Rudy, who's
Jeroen
looking
and
to
Rudy.
Oh, Mark's invalidated on the final corner there, just taking too much curb, and that would have been 2 tenths down. He backed off anyway. So, what lap time could it have been? I think J Law's next across the line. He's invalidated as well. So, we'll have to go for another flying lap. But we've got more drivers there go for flying laps, because doing more than one lap on these tyres, the tyre life is very good around here, especially on the inters. You can do more than one tyre because they don't overheat so quickly. So that's why you can do more than one lap.
Yeah, it's sort of the contrary to the softs. The softs, like you say, heating being the big issue, and wear, of course. You don't want to, you want to have the prime sort of life in your tyres. The inters don't wear as much because they don't heat as much. In fact, they actually heat better on the second to third lap. You sometimes find in some circuits, depending on your setup, of course, and how good your tyre warming is on the outlap. But getting that extra heating just provides little fractions of grip out of the corners, but fractions of grip in corners translate to hundreds of tenths, hundreds of seconds, which translate to tenths of seconds per lap. Robbie,
Keep an eye
third
on
time
Liam.
On who? Sorry.
Liam, he's just gone 4 tenths quicker in the middle sector, mate.
4 tenths. That would put him on for a 33-0. And speaking of a 43-0, Robbie on his third consecutive lap. These conditions are definitely getting better. And Liam, a 42.9 tenth, I believe, a tenth and 600 quicker than Robbie. But Robbie in his first proper lap, not invalidated, putting a stonker in. Pease moves up. Wouter moves up. And Jeroen moves up slightly as well, all jockeying for position, but not able to creep anywhere near Robbie's time or Liam's at the moment.
And it looks like a Red Bull has crashed in the middle sector. That is J-Lo coming out of turn 14, I believe. Probably lost it on traction and lit the rears up and hit the wall. So sad for him. He will not participate any more further in qualifying 3. He'll start down in P10 then. So we've got a few drivers in the pits. Lots of different drivers like to take different approaches in this qualifying session in the wets, because some like to go for push, cool down, push. Some like to go for a push, push, and cool down another push. And some they like to go back to the pit lane immediately. But that's why you can be careful, because if your driver in front and the drivers behind push, you've got to get out of the way, because they go for consecutive lap times. So you also got to pay attention to what other drivers are doing, because you might want to back off, and other drivers behind you might want to push. So you can be really, really careful as well. Nathan hesitated coming into turn 12 there, not really getting the best entry or exit in that corner. He's lost 2 tenths in that middle sector there, so it's not really working well for Nathan JB at the moment, down in P8 in the Aston Martin there. Just wondering, where's Robbie? He's might have to go back to the pit lane because the fuel light's on. Might go for another lap. He's in the pit lane, so Robbie then in the pit lane he goes. What about Jeroen Visser? I can't really see what lap time he's doing. Pieces out there as well on a lap. No, he's not. I think he's backing off at the moment. Keep an eye on Jeroen Visser here. I think he's going to complete this lap, and he's making his way around the penultimate corner now. Keep it nice and tidy. Goes a bit wide through there than he would have wanted, and now making his way around the final corner then. Nathan crosses the line to go for another flying lap. Jeroen Visser goes up into P4, so he's improved almost by a tenth. But we'll see that in these last stages of qualifying, who will take pole position? Will it be Liam? Will it be Robbie? Wouter? Can Mark pull it out of the back again? I know he's got more pace, but he validated on that final corner. Or can it be anybody else?
Yeah, a key thing I think to note as well when you're saying there, Liam, just before I jump into that, Liam coming back into the pits, struggling for time to get back out after that, so that'll be his qualifying done. Not just about, the push and cool laps.
I consider it.
But of course, it's all about being on the push laps at the right time, because when changing conditions here, the rain could ease, the track starts to clear. We know how quick the weather can change in this game. It's something that's been very well documented and noted, that it can go from being very dry to very wet to very dry again quite quick, and especially when you've got these changed conditions. Just being on that time when the track sits maybe its driest or in its optimal conditions can make the difference. And, doing a lap in the 6th minute of Q3 versus doing a lap in the 4th minute of Q3 can have very different times just based on what grip's available on the conditions here. A few minutes left to go though, so the guys here are going to put their last lap in. Everybody, apart from Jay Lawler, who has crashed, and Liam Carrig, who has chosen to retire in the pits, is going to be on a lap, either that being an out lap or a full lap. Some of the guys here out on 4-lap inters, some of them on brand new inters, so a nice little variety. We'll see, is the temperature and wear worth it, or is the freshness what it's all for? Nathan crosses the line to go P7 with a 43.6. He will have time if he's back on a lap immediately. A low battery though, but not too much of a condition in efficient in these conditions. Sorry, I'm getting a bit tongue-tied here tonight. Valter, a 43.0, moves to P2 at the moment.
Yeah, I noticed on his lap he was struggling in that penultimate corner. He lost a little bit of time, and also the final corner as well. So if he didn't make those mistakes, could he be on pole position? But I'm not quite sure if he's going for another lap there. But total P's came back in the pit lane, and he hit the wall as well. And yeah, he's not going to participate any further in qualifying because he retired. So in his qualifying session, Robbie then coming towards the final corner he's got 3 seconds left. Can he make the line? I'm not quite sure. No, he can't. Has he? It said 3 seconds and I can't see 0 seconds, so I think no, he has it actually. So Robbie has not made it. I thought he was a bit late arriving to the party because he came out of the pit lane when the time was like 1 minute and 50 seconds or something. I thought he was a bit too late coming out there. I kept an eye on him, but anyways, who's going to improve? Walter has invalidated on his second run. Mark a 10th down in the middle sector. Where's Rudy? Rudy has
Rudy's
backed
come
off.
through the full right-handers. Yeah, he seems to have backed off.
Mark's the only one that can stop him. But Mark's messed up in that triple right-hander, so I dare say, yeah, he's backed off as well. So it looks like Liam Carrig then will be on pole position on his debut for Williams, replacing Mr. BT. Oh, Nathan's lost it and he's hit the wall. He was 1/10 up in the middle set. He lost it where Remo Grosjean spun back in 2012. But he was a 10th up. That would have put him about where Mark and Pease is. I decided for him, it will start down in P7 then. So Liam Carrig on his debut starts on pole position, and the Wetmaster keeps his name.
Absolutely. What a way to show your stuff on your debut. Valter getting at P2, of course, the defending champion. We always expect him to be up and about there. 43.010. Just over, or just under, 800s behind Liam. 800s further back to him, Robbie in the Aston Martin, and then we have to go a whole 3 tenths. It doesn't sound like a lot, but in the terms of motor racing, it is everything to Jeroen. Mark, Pease and Nathan follow shortly behind, a 10th separating each of them roughly. Rudy not far behind Nathan in P8, followed by Jaime, and the man that spun out and hit the wall on his full-time debut for Season 6, of course, returning from previous season to his course, Jay Lawler. Rounds off our top 10, and that will be curtains for qualifying. The grid has been set. The only thing not set is the tyres and the weather for the race. Lots and lots of questions still to be answered, but the one question we have answered is, who's on pole? It's Mr. Liam Carrig.
Be very interested in the race because obviously everybody gets a choice of what tyres they want to start on. So what tyres will they start on? Will they go for the softs? Will they go for the mediums? I actually don't know what I'd do, to be honest with you. I don't know. Depends what position I'm in. If I was like P9, P10, I'd probably go on the mediums or P8. But in pole position, you want to keep that track position as well. So will they go on the soft compound tyres? I know the softs all over here around here. There's no question about it. No doubt about it, of course, because the soft tyres just overheat too much around here. And especially that first set as well, where you're behind another car, suffer a lot of understeer, putting more energy into the tyres, especially down that right hand as well, where the tyres take a lot of energy, take a lot of punishment. So it'd be very interesting to see what tyres they go on. Like in 2015 in the qualifying session when it was wet, I think it was wet during the race as well in 2015 where Rosberg and Hamilton were fighting for the championship, and eventually it was Lewis Hamilton who won it. But in the past, it's known that second place has led the race into turn one. We saw back in 2015 when Lewis Hamilton, Nico Rosberg, and also back in 2017 where Sebastian Vettel took the lead on the first lap ahead of Lewis Hamilton. 2018 where Kimi Räikkönen on the ultra softs got ahead of Lewis Hamilton on the soft compound tyres as they were back then. And in 2019 as well, Valtteri Bottas managed to cover the inside line. If you get a good start by starting a pole position, you have to cover the inside line immediately if you've got that space and need it to turn one. And obviously, previously, in the last 2021 USA race, Max Verstappen got ahead of Lewis Hamilton. So if Liam's on the mediums and Wilds on the softs, we're very benefited if you get him down into turn one, because second place, I think, is the better place to start. Having that inside line into turn one and potentially squeezing your rival out. We saw like Hamilton and Rosberg back then in 2015. USA, it is quite a bumpy track. I think they're modifying it now in next race, because F1, it doesn't matter because of the suspension and the aerodynamics and all that, but they changed it because of MotoGP, because it's very, very bumpy and dangerous for MotoGP riders. They're actually thinking about cancelling it as well, the USA Grand Prix, only if it's going to be resurfaced. I think it is being resurfaced, so we could get a new surface thanks to MotoGP.
Yeah, I believe so. MotoGP, obviously a lot more affected by all the bumps and little lumps in the circuit. The F1 cars here, like saying, are not too affected. Turn 1 though will be interesting. Very, very iconic turn 1, I would say. That very sharp left hand, almost a hairpin, I would say. And you can see it in the corner of your screen there, folks. Look at that embankment up the hill. It is quite the rise, quite the change in elevation up to turn 1. So it provides some very interesting overtaking opportunities. Speaking of the track, I suppose, let's get some CRL stats in it. Of course, in the city of Austin, 20 corners, 5.5 kilometres long and 28 laps tonight, making its debut all the way back in Season 1. Last winner out here in CRC 1 was, of course, Mr. AJ Wuhan. He finds himself starting, I believe, in P13 or 14, so a lot of work if he's to replicate that tonight. Round 4 of this Season 6 calendar, of course, Albert Park in Australia, Circuit Paul Ricard in France, and the Autodrome Nacional de Monza in Italy. The last tracks we have done, USA Kota, the Circuit of Americas being host around 4 before we head down the coast and the continent to Brazil next week. But before all that, we've got 28 laps of what I can only say and hope is pure action, promise, and adrenaline. Drivers, though, just about to start their formation lap. We will get a look at what tyres are on. By the looks of things, a lot of mediums on that front part of the grid. Indeed, all of the grid, bar J Lawler in P10 and Het Bumpe, Mr. P17, the little tree on the softs. So only 2 cars on the softs. Very, very racy at the start. But like you say, once you get in that train, heating becomes especially a problem. It is very much known, just can be, especially at this higher tier, a bit of a DRS train track. The drivers separated by nothing but a few tenths, and not really much overtaken apart from the guys in first and second in the train, like we did see a little bit of Monza. So that's only going to be aided by the singularity almost that is the strategy here the drivers have chose. When you've got different tyre compounds of different ages and such, it can help with overtaking, because obviously some cars are going to be slower than others at different points of the track, different points of the race as well. But everybody, 18 out of the 20 going for the mediums. Only the lone Red Bull and lone Alpha Tauri, I believe it is, Bumpe is in, going for the softs. Early safety car could be a benefit of them though, so keep an eye on that. Safety cars, of course, very common around here. We've seen them plenty of times. And another thing that's very common is, of course, the invalidations and warnings for running a little bit wide or cutting the corners a little bit too much. So another thing to keep an eye out for over the next 28 laps or 45 minutes or so of this Grand Prix.
It's going to be a thriller, this Grand Prix. Just came back, just saw 2 people on the soft compound tyres, J Law and Het Bumpe, so they'll be looking to get a really good start. Use those soft compound tyres, try and capitalise on them, and try and move up as further up as they can. Like you said, the early safety cars as well can benefit them, because safety cars can be a high chance around here as well with the difficulty of this circuit. But it's going to be very interesting then as all the drivers are starting to line up. Can Will Walter go down the inside of Liam Carragher to turn 1, or will Liam have it covered? Try and cover the inside line away from Walter, or can we see 3Y? We've seen that in the past before. So it could be a really good, interesting USA Grand Prix. Expect DRS trades as well, and expect a really good battle down at Sector 2 and Sector 3, where you have those sequence of slow corners which could lead up towards the penultimate corner where the battle could end. So We're tucked in for a really nice race tonight, and we'll see who wins. Will Liam Carrag win the Grand Prix on his first debut here, or will Walter? Can he extend his championship lead ahead of his nearest rival, which is Giroud Visser? Can Robbie get a podium this time? He's tried on 2 attempts. He's actually got them at post-race penalties, put him down the order. So lots to look forward to tonight.
Plenty of things to keep an eye on, like you say, plenty of questions, but only one answer to them all. It is, of course, all the action here live on the CRL channel as we get ready for race 4 of Season 6 here on CRC 1 with 5 red lights. And it is lights out, and away we go for the Circuit of America's Grand Prix. Liam getting a good start there, covering off Valter as he tucks it in behind it. Valter having a little look, not quite the space there. And here comes Robbie, having a go around the outside. Further back seems to be a little bit of wing damage on, I believe, one of the McLarens there. It looks to be CP's falling down the pack, but all of the cars seeming to get away pretty safe into the S's, apart from a Ferrari there going side by side. Is that T-Griff? I believe it is. Looking to get a bit side by side with Boompy. A nice bit of action already into this race. Shows a lot of promise. Jay Lawler on those softs. He's right on the gearbox of Jaime. Very, very close compared to the other guys in front. Of course, the dirty air going to be affecting all these guys, but less so him with extra soft. And a rotation. Going for a rotation himself as Jay Lawler loses the back end a little bit out of the exit of turn 11 there. Down at the DRS straight and losing a position to Ferg in that train already.
So, where's our soft runners? Our soft runner is in P15, and the other soft runner, who was that? I actually can't remember. J Law down in P11. So J Law's lost 1 place as we see a battle with Rudy and Nathan. Nathan having the inside line, but Rudy trying to go all the way around the outside here. Can Nathan stay in P7? Yes, he can. Or Rudy try and go back down the inside? No, he won't. But the top 4 stay where they started. Mark moving up. P's moving up 1 place ahead of Mark losing 1, so not a lot of position changes or losing. The biggest loser so far is Seaboard Gamer dropping from P13 down into P19 starting for him. Something must have gone on there. But good start from Liam Carrag there, and he managed to stay ahead of Walter, cover the inside line. Robbie tried to go around the outside of Walter, but Walter had that covered. Giroud Visser had tried to go down the inside, but there's no room there, so he had to back out. So even start for the top 4 there as we move on to lap 2. So 1 more lap to the DRS as rotation that has to complete half a lap or a quarter of a lap without no front wing, and into pit lane he goes. Both McLarens down in P, or in fact he's fighting with Steiny. Is Seaboard Gamer. Seaboard Gamer there moving up 1 place ahead of Steiny, looking to try and get back in the field. There's AJ down into P16. He's also lost 3 places from P13 down into P16, whereas his teammates move 4 places already on their soft compound tyre. J Law has lost another place towards Nathan. Nathan crashed out in Q1 and he's up into P11 already. So good start there from Nathan in P11.
Yeah, up 4 places. That says IRT Boompy up 17th to 13th at the midpoint of the second lap. Interesting to note, the top 9 not changing positions apart from that P's and Mark switch like you pointed out. So they've stayed pretty stable on the first lap. Nathan now getting a run down on Ferg, using a little bit of ERS and that slipstream down the run to turn 12, getting the move done nice and early beforehand on a charge. That makes his 5th position, in these first 2 laps. Rotation though having a nightmare start. And Jay Lawler, speaking of nightmare, losing 2 positions there to Boompy and Andreas. I'm not too sure what happened there, whether it was a little bit of a wide run or a little bit of a loss of grip, but losing it out pretty badly there.
Yeah, I saw that. He lost traction cut out of turn 30, I believe. Just went too wide. And luckily, he did not hit the wall. And they managed to save it up into P40. Not good for him, considering he's on the soft compound tyres. He started in P10. He's down into P14. He's gone backwards, where he needs to go forwards on those soft compound tyres. But Head Bompia gaining another place up into P12. So Head Bompia gaining a lot of places already on lap 3. As the soft compound tyres are working for him. C4 Gamer and AJ had a battle. C has moved up himself up into P16 there, so AJ loses another place towards C4 Gamer, but DRS is now unable then. How close is Walter towards P? Looks like Robbie's closer towards Walter than Walter is towards Liam Carrag in P1. This is the first time they'll have DRS in this session because they didn't have DRS at all in qualifying. Liam goes a bit deep into turn 11 there, so all that compromises exit a bit. And Walter then has the DRS. How early will he go for it this race? Will he stay behind, try and save the DRS, try and save the tyre wear? Or, yes, he closes the DRS in fact, so he doesn't want to go for it too early, as Liam defends the inside line, thinking that he's going to go for a move early in this race. They stay where they are. Anybody else further back to make a move into turn 12? We've got Andreas, J-Law, and a Ferrari of Griff trying to go down the inside. Griff got put in a cute angle. I didn't have enough space there to try and get ahead of Andreas, but J Law is back up into P13 ahead of Andreas in the Alpine in P14.
This race so far providing us with a lot of action and a lot of entertainment. That DRS strain still holding out. The biggest gap at the moment, 1.4 seconds. And it's J Lawler on those, sort of struggling a little bit at the start of this race. As Griff goes for a spin on the exit of the long right-hander, the triple right-hander, shall I say. Seemed to lose the back end on the penultimate part of the corner there and taking a spin, keeping it out of the barrier. And it seems as if we've got our first pit stops. Andreas and AJ Wuhan coming into the pits. I'm interested to see, I'm going to ride on board with these guys. Is this a front wing change? Or is this purely strategy? It is a front wing change for Andreas and a front wing change for AJ Wuhan. So both of them getting caught up in some sort of damage at some point. And the first of what I can only assume is going to be many penalties tonight coming the way of Relentless Nathan. A 3-second time penalty for free corner cutting or track extending warnings. And don't think that'll be the last of them. Wouter though closing the gap to Liam Carag, 2/10 before he even gets to turn 11. Who's got the better exit though? Of course, Wouter going to be assisted by that DRS system on the rear wing. You can see it wide open, splitting that Haas icon on the back. He moves to the right hand side, taking the outside line down to turn 12, and in fact he's going to get the move done nice and early before they even hit the apex. Wouter up into the race lead at the moment.
Nathan has got himself passed ahead of the Aston Martin. In fact, it's coming back down the inside. That's the Alfa Romeo. Sorry, they go side by side now. Nathan has the inside line for the next corner, and there the move's completed. Unless Jai comes back at him with a better exit. No, he doesn't. So Nathan then up into P9 behind Rudy and the other Nathan of JB. So Liam's turn there to try and save EOS and try and get back at Walter for the race lead. Robbie though in P3 looking to make a move because he's stuck behind these two. When you're in the DRS trade, when you're in P3, P4, P5, it's very difficult to move up the field because first and second will swap, but you guys will stay exactly where you are because of the DRS. That's how the DRS trade works. That's why it's so difficult to overtake, especially the early part. So that's why when pit stop starts to happen, the gap, the trade will split a bit and you have your own private battles going on. You'll see in the early part of the race, a massive DRS trade, but once the pit stops start happening, which will be like lap 14, 15 due to the medium tyres and the wet qualifying session, the trade will start to split. That's when we'll see some interesting action. Meanwhile, head Bob down to Peter. Oh, in fact, Liam's gone wide coming out of turn 9. And here comes Robbie then. You've got to be careful not to lose the DRS towards Walter because once Walter's out the DRS, he can start pulling away. And they have to stay in DRS of each other, otherwise one of them will start pulling away. You can see there, Robbie having to use the ERS to try and stay connection of Walter. Liam's under pressure from his teammate Rufus, so it looks like Liam is struggling then in the early parts of this race. Will Walter go down inside of his teammate?
Key there though, Robbie not getting the DRS. He was just outside the 1 second, that rear wing in the Aston Martin, not opening down the straight there like you've seen Liam's doing from that view on Jeroen. So this is Wouter's chance. The gap 8/10 at the moment. He needs a really good third sector here. Maybe he needs to burn a little ERS if he ever gets a chance and break that DRS range, because like you say, it can make a big difference. If you can break that DRS, you give it away from the guy in second, he can start falling into the clutches of the guy in third. They'll battle and maybe lose each other some time. Of course, DRS activated when you're within 1 second of the car ahead at the DRS activation point, highlighted by the little green circle to the left of the sector 3 and the little green circle at the tip end of the track on the mini-map down there. For those that are maybe a bit less familiar here, Mark though very close to the back of Pease, not quite able to make a move, and in fact Pease getting very close to the back of Ewan, so typical DRS train here this.
We've seen plenty of battles between Walter and Robbie despite having 2-3 races only. This is the third race of the season. We saw in Australia where Robbie was hunting down Walter for the lead of this race, and he got him at the penultimate corner, well actually at turn 13 in Australia, AJ sets the fastest lap, and in Monza Robbie got Walter in the last corner and he took a podium, but sadly it didn't count due to his early on track. Earlier in the lap, I think it was lap 26 when he picked up a post-race penalty due to an accident down at turn 4 or something, but he is right behind Walter and we're having another battle between these two. He goes early despite having 20% ERS, so what I'd do in this situation when I have low ERS, I would stay behind Walter or whoever it is and just regain that battery strong, because that's the easiest way. If you stay behind somebody, use their slipstream and try and save a bit of ERS. But Robbie's going early, he's overtaking Walter at the earliest possible moment, not letting it pull away or anything. But Walter they can save the ERS up and try and get Robbie back if Robbie runs out of ERS. Meanwhile, Nathan is behind Nathan for P7. That battle between two Nathans. Nathan's done a really good job on P15. P15's P8 already on the medium compound tyres. Head Bompia on the soft compound tyres. He'll be struggling now because they'll be coming towards the end of the peak performance. The tyre wear is okay, but the peak performance will be gone and the tyres will start to overheat. So Head Bompia then down in P12 will take an early pit stop due to those soft compound tyres being at this stage. Not being really good, but look at the two Williams. They've swapped positions. That wasn't an overtake. Liam let him pass. As you can see, they're backing off on the straight. So Giroud versus the championship rival, I must say, not the championship leader. That's Walter. Hunted down the championship leader in P2. Only 1 point away separates Giroud and Walter.
Wonder if Liam, maybe we've seen him lose a few positions, make a few mistakes here. Maybe just the trim he's set up not quite suited to these conditions as much as before, or maybe he's playing the perfect reserve teammate role here, saying to Jeroen, you're in this championship battle, I'm just here to make up the numbers, and I mean that in no offensive term. He has a reserve, of course. He doesn't really have a full-time role in the championship battle, so maybe just saying, you know, you're in this, on you go, son, do your best. And if that's the case, fair play to him. Love to see that. Pizzo is the next to be lining up a move on Liam. He's going to be dropping positions like it's going out of fashion here. P's not quite close enough to get the move done. He does have a little look at it, a little bit of wheel banging almost, just slight bit of contact, but of course that outside of turn 12 turns to the inside of 13 and 14, which turns to the outside of 15, which is very tricky to sting around the outside, but he does it, and of course inside for the fast right-hander, the triple right-hander effectively, and gets the move done. What a nice little battle from those two there.
Oh,
We do have yellow flags.
Bobby has spun. Oh dear, that's the triple right-hander. I'm not quite sure if he touched the curb though on the inside, but Liam's gone off the track, and Mark goes down the inside of Liam. So looks like there's plenty of action going on there. So Robbie then down in P12 after leading the race. That's a shame for him down in P12. He'd be frustrated to see that over and over again. But yeah, the championship contenders, first and second now, on P1 and P2. It'll be very interesting to see the battle between them. But Jive going side by side with Ferg. Ferg has the outside line, and here comes the Ferg down the inside. Got the move done. And Jive then relegated down into P10. But that's a massive shame for Robbie. Trying to get on the podium after missing out on 2 podiums due to post-race penalties. It's a massive shame there. But I'm not quite sure what happened, whether he just lost it on traction or tyres were overheated just a bit. But who knows? But sadly, he's down in P12. Hopefully the tyres are okay. They should be okay. But in terms of tyre management or tyre temperature, they'll be overheated, so he has to cool them down and get back into it. But yeah, looks like Giroud, Walter's pulled away from Giroud just a little bit there, as you can see there. Giroud just sticking the DRS of Walter. Ferg, P's in P3 ahead of Mark. And look at Nathan then. Here comes Nathan down the inside of Nathan into turn 12. They go side by side now. Nathan has the inside line, and Nathan trying to stick it around the outside there. But Nathan has, I need to stop saying that. he has the better exit coming out of turn 12.
I was about to say there, has somebody paid you £1 every time you say the word Nathan? You're fairly getting them in there, pal. Maybe we'll go with Relentless N and NJB. Something like that. We'll need to figure out some little nicknames for these pair, because it could be a long season if they're battling like they are today. But Nathan, the Relentless variety, of course, doing a cracking job up from P15 to P6, of course, being assisted by those spins by, I believe, T-Griff and Robbie, but still carving his way through this field, which isn't easy to do when we've got a DRS train at the moment down from P1 all the way to P11, and that's really going to be hurting Robbie. He has got the position up on Jay Lawler, but there's a 2-second gap now to the back of that DRS train, so although he's got the pace, he's really got to close down that gap, get hooked back in, and then the tricky task, of course, is getting through everybody. Maybe that can be assisted by an undercut. That might be the plan to play here, might be the smart option, but of course that hampers you later on the race, because you have got to spend more time on those softs. They are going to overheat even more than those mediums of his probably are doing at the moment. Relentless Nathan, though, really on a charger. His next target, Liam Carrick. He's only a couple of attempts back, and maybe with the assist a quintuple almost slipstream here with a bit of DRS. He is bleeding that battery very, very low, deciding to turn off it, not going to gain any ground this time. But what a couple of moves by Relentless Nathan in the Red Bull anyway. Good few opening laps.
Yeah, so indeed as well. You're not going to see any early pit stops because they're all on the medium compound tyres. If you're wondering why they're all on the mediums, that's because we had a wet qualifying session. There were a lot of you like to tune in the race rather than qualify. That's understandable, of course, or you just finished your league race. Nathan had a look on Liam Carrag there. Liam Carrag was the pole sitter. I'm not quite sure Judging by the way he's turning in, it looks like he's turning a lot. I'm not quite sure if he's sustained any full wind damage or not. It doesn't look visible to me at the moment, but it might have sustained a light full wind damage. Of course, that can appear time to time. But Nathan, they're starting P15 and up into P6 already. Fantastic job from him so far. I wonder if he's one of the drivers to pick up a podium, but he's picked up a penalty sadly for him that was earlier on during the race. As Liam then almost hit the back of Mark, just outbroke himself just a little bit there. Oh, he lost traction. Liam is definitely struggling there, sadly for him, and he's moved up into P5 as Relentless Nathan. Yeah, Nathan's out of 1 second range of DRS towards Mark, so he has to get back in that as quickly as possible to try and stay with this battle and not get threatened by the guys behind, because Nathan is on low ERS, of course, so he has to try and stay that up, ready for the next attack.
Yeah, you can definitely see here, you know, a variety of ERS batteries which just flick through the drivers. Some of them using it to attack most of the guys, you know, like Nathan JB, Relentless Nathan using it to sort of pull themselves up the grid. Liam Carrag, maybe that's been part of his downfall, 60% ERS, not been wasting it too much in the opening laps and maybe have a chance to go back at it as we see Relentless Nathan is D-Rain. We do have a car round in the final sector, that's Andreas. His race going from bad to worse as Liam goes for a move down the inside of Relentless Nathan, almost pushing him off track. A little bit of wheel banging there, Nathan picking up his second time penalty. That might be removable by the stewards, but of course that's all reliant on him not getting another pen later in the race. But another bit of close racing between these. It's certainly living up to the expectation we thought of DRS train, but not quite to the same degree as we had in Monza. Monza was very tricky for anybody apart from the top two to overtake, and all 20 of the drivers here on track definitely proving that otherwise here tonight. Love the bit of action all over the place.
So, soft runner of Het Bompje is in the pit lane, of course. Those tyres start to come to an end now, so he's in the pit lane, ready to go on to the medium compound tyres. I think they can go to the end of those mediums, and also into the pit lane. Thought on the car in the pit lane, that's just me. Nobody's in the pit lane except Het Bompje, of course. And he's going to fit the medium compound tyres. They just get out that DRS trade, and let's see what he can do towards the end of the race. You had two soft starter runners, and somebody has spun.
It's Liam Carrag. It seemed to be a bit of contact. I just caught the end of it. I saw there was a gap, quite a close gap between him and Relentless Nathan, and he pulled off to the right. It seems to be missing his front right end plate there. So maybe another little bit of wheel bang between Nathan, almost collecting Robbie. A little bit of a turn in from him there as Robbie tried to squeeze up the inside, but a little bit of contact sees our pole sitter drop all the way down to 13th, and he's going to have to limp that car home, because we all know how bad the damage model is in this game. When you get even the slightest bit of damage, it really affects that performance.
Especially at a track like this as well, where downforce is most required in that first. And Nathan JB has re-overtaken Relentless Nathan up into P5 then. But you said you saw it. I wonder if Relentless Nathan has sustained any damage, because I know those two wheel banged about 2 or 3 times the last lap, so I'm not quite sure if there's any damage to sustained to Relentless Nathan there, because Nathan, you can tell Nathan's using a lot of curbing, because he's picked up quite a few penalties. Well, he's actually picked up 2 penalties, but one of them has been off the track by Liam, side-by-side racing. But Nathan, they're really pushing hard and abusing these track limits. I pick up a 6-second time penalty.
Yeah, using the full extent of the track and a little bit more, testing the limits like you say. So definitely a little bit of wheel banging going on between him and Liam, and it's ultimately cost Liam a end plate and a pit stop. Nathan looking to be alright in that. Maybe some light green damage, just some very, very faint damage to maybe a winglet or so affecting the downforce, but he's still sticking to the back of Nathan JB, so possibly not. Looks to be holding the cars nice and steady through the very technical Sector 1 with all those S's. And Nathan, what a sentence that is. They were just over a second off the back of the train, but very quickly managing to reel back in. So is this just a case of dirty air maybe hampering the guys in front, or is it a case of just Wouter and your own P's and Mark not pushing to the full extent, keeping those tyres within a nice operating range? Or speaking of that though, operating range, Wouter losing to Jeroen, so Jeroen coming a bit of life here, overtaking his championship rival, 1 point separating them in the standings and 1 position separating them in the track, as we have another yellow flag, and that is Andreas having another spin at the same place. I can't help but feel that's a setup issue. Just the car not suited to that long right-hander getting unsettled with heavy fuel and warm tyres.
Yeah, a few drivers have lost it through there, so the drivers then really struggling. They were looking good in the wet, but sadly for them in the dry, it's not really suiting them. But Giroud has then take the lead ahead of Wouter. I love it when these three get together: Giroud, Wouter, and Pease. Mark's there as well. Nathan, Rudy, and Berg's there as well. Robbie almost back in the DRS trade, but he's got a C4 gamer ahead of him. He's ready next to battle him. He's out the DRS range of J-Law. J-Law is in the pit lane. He's looking to try and get Hepbompia then in, as Hepbompia pitting for a brand new set of medium compound tyres, looking to undercut these guys. And somebody, oh, could that be a safety car, I wonder? He's crashed in the first set, so that could benefit the mediums. Yeah, he has crashed in the first set. You can see him losing the wheel there. So, could a safety car be deployed? We're just waiting for a few seconds. I don't think it'll be deployed now, otherwise it will came out. So, no safety car. As Giroud is makes his way towards turn 11 then, so he'll be a DRS provider to all these guys behind. Mark looking very interested in there as well. He's already picked up a podium. Did he pick a podium this season? Oh.
He's had two. He got one. He's not had them on tracks per se, but he had one when Robbie got his penalty in Australia, and one when Nathan got his penalty for crossing the pit entry in France. So I believe he's had 2 fourths on track, but they've been converted. No, he did. Sorry, he got a third in Australia, and that jumped up to a second, and then a fourth in France, and it jumped up to a third. So looking in a strong position to make 3 out of 4. Jeroen, of course, winning last week in a strong position to try and double up on that. Pease having a podium as well, and Wouter having a win once Rudy's penalty was applied in Australia. So these guys used to be in these positions, not just previous seasons, but this season. But look at the quality we've got here in the top 8. Now, this is no disrespect to any of the other 12, but you've got Jeroen, Wouter, Pease and Mark with very quick drivers. Nathan, of course, one of our head admins. Amazing guy, amazing pace, constantly improving. I'm definitely one on the up like Marcus. Relentless Nathan, maybe not so well known within the CRL community, but I think the guys that race in the kind of wider F1 community know the pace he's got. He is running no ABS in this league, because with ABS on, he is absolutely rapid. I think he had number 3 in the world around China at one point. Rudy, we've seen the pace he can have at times. Lightning quick, and Ferg, a previous champion. You can never forget an old dog like Ferg. I'm sure he'll love me saying that, the tender-old half countryman, I like to call him. He's a Scotsman in my eyes, even though he likes to claim he's English. Half 50%, that's enough for me, mate.
Yeah, I agree with you on all of that. We've got some really good drivers here, all of 20 of them, of course. But on the straight there, for lap 14 out of 28, this race is flying by. We've got Wouter challenging the lead of Giroud versus these two are championship rivals, of course. Wouter closed the DRS. He does not want to make that move. Pease all over the back. Now, Pease has a lot of DRS to his name in his disposal as well. So, Pease had a difficult start to the season, especially in Australia, where he collected AJ, I believe, in turn 30, with AJ and Giroud were going side by side. And AJ lost the car, and sadly, Pease was there to collect him, and he retired. And also, back at the Monza Grand Prix, when I know Bob, you don't want people knowing this, but he spotted on the safety car, did Bompia, and Pease was at the wrong place at the wrong time, second consecutive. He could have won that race with Pease, but sadly it just didn't go his way. But hopefully, after all that bad luck, it just go away. He can start focusing, because we know Pease has got really strong pace moves. And the second half of the season was relentless. That's obviously relentless Pease. Yeah, that wasn't the pun. That wasn't the pun. I completely said it. But
that was a
Rudy,
happy little accident, was it?
Yeah, Rudy and Jaime are on the soft compound tyres there, so if they're going for an early undercut, a bit of glitch going on there with the Ferrari mechanics, but they've gone for a really early undercut, trying to get out of the train and trying to do the best possible undercut they can to try and get ahead of these guys. So keep an eye on Rudy and Jaime. Those soft compound tyres, 13 laps, I believe they can do that, but obviously towards the end of the stint, they'll be struggling just a bit. So these guys, they will respond while Rudy and Jaime are out there closing the gap. But problem is, 1.6 behind Griff and Steiny. They're in a fight of their own in P11 and P12. So their job, they have to overtake them as quick as they can, but be careful as well, because I know Griff and Steiny are fighting for P12 and 13. So make their way through as possible, as cleanly as they can, and let's see they undercut these guys. So I think these guys will respond. I think it's a little bit early, I'm not quite sure, but we'll see then if they made the right choice. Robbie up into P8 ahead of C4 Gaming. He's been closing him down, has Robbie on C, but Steiny goes down the inside of Martin for P10, and Rudy has got past his Ferrari teammate, so his Ferrari teammate did not make that difficult, but apologies, so it was actually Steiny and Marty fighting for P10 and 11, not Steiny to Griff. So when he catches up to them, going to be really careful not to interfere with that battle too much and get ahead of them. Anybody in the pit lane? Nope, they all stay out, so that gives another lap towards Rudy and Jaime to close in. In fact, Nathan's in the pit lane, Nathan JB. Oh, I thought he picked up a 5-second time penalty for speed at the pit lane, but that was actually Marty getting a 3-second time penalty. It had me nervous there.
It'll be interesting to see. Nathan GB was 5th, of course, Relentless Name 6th, and I believe it was Rudy was P7, Ferg P8 before the initial pit stop from Rudy. So we'll see how Rudy and Nathan sort of compare on the pit stop. And Rudy, just with that one lap undercut, look how much he's jumped Nathan by.
Side by side. Oh, he makes contact with the Ferrari there. Griff and Nathan meeted each other in the same part of the track as Nathan had to go under the pit lane and rules and regulations to Griff there. Nathan lost a little bit of time towards the Ferrari. I dare say he should have got ahead of him, but Griff there taking the wider line and getting a better exit, of course. Now Nathan has to overtake Griff to stay in this battle. Don't spend too much time behind the Ferrari. Ideally, get ahead of him before turn 12. He's so close behind him, of course. But he go for it at turn 11, he'll get the DRS first. Might go for it at turn 11. There he goes then. Down the inside he goes into turn 11. No, wasting no time there. No, Sergio Perez overtook, I think it was a Toro Rosso back there in 2017. Rudy has overtaken Steiny for P8, wasting no time behind him. DRS enabled, textbook overtake for him. So while one of these guys respond, the longer they stay out, more chance Rudy will get ahead of them. And we know when Rudy's on the soft compound tyres and in first place, he should have got a podium in France, but his AI disconnected. And his AI went to the pit lane as well, so hopefully he can find himself on the podium. I think he got the podium last race, was that correct?
He did,
no,
yes. He came in for a little chat with us. I can't remember if it was, I believe it was P2, P3. Answers on a postcard, of course. He would have got bumped up one with... No, he wouldn't have actually, because it was for the fine. It must have been for P2, because Jeroen won the race. Yeah. Ferg pulling the gun, and Steiny. So Ferg and Rudy. Rudy was just in front of Ferg, I believe, as was Jaime. Jaime was actually behind Ferg as well. Sorry, Rudy was just behind Ferg. So that undercut really pulling off. I mean, look at that. Look at that undercut between Nathan and Ferg. 3 seconds a lap, effectively, you're looking out here. So the guys all still out of effectively lost 6 seconds on Rudy. To be fair, he's only about 12 seconds off the back of their train, and when you've got about 20 to 25 seconds in a pit stop here, the longer they go, of course, they're going to have less and less laps doing the softs. They can push it a lot harder, not worrying about overheating the tyres in the long run, and not worrying about running out of tyre distance in its lifespan as such in the long run. But unless there's a safety car, they're going to really have to push that time out. I mean, there's 4 or 5 of them pitting together. In fact, 6 of them probably are going to be pushing together if you include Seep. He might come out in the mix depending when he pits. Although they'll all be wanting to hunt down Rudy, they're going to be fighting with each other. And of course, we all know, every time you go for a corner side by side, you have even just the thought of a car behind you, it can be enough to just affect your turn and lose you a 10th here, a 10th there, a 10th there. And over the course of a lap, and over the course of multiple laps, that all adds up. So Rudy looking in a very strong position going for that early undercut here. And here we go. The top 5 all file into the pits at the end of lap 16. Where will Rudy come out?
Jeroen and Walter were fighting before the pit stops. They were side by side going into the last sector, so they lost a lot of time. And Sevo Gamer takes the lead of this race. A safety car will benefit him as Nathan sets the fast lap. Rudy rejoins well ahead of everybody. Look at that gap. Jaime in P3, Nathan in P4, and Pease will rejoin in P7. Jeroen, Ferg has got ahead of Pease. So that undercut for Pease has worked. Ferg has worked really, really well. He is right behind the net race, not the net race leader, P5 effectively. So Ferg pitted early has benefited a lot because he was like effectively almost last in the DRS trade. Look how much he's gained as well on Jeroen, overtaking Pisa Walter, who was essentially behind. With he picked up a 3-second time penalty, has Ferg, so that's going to cost him a little bit.
Yeah, I've got to admit, I really love watching these guys on the Thursday night. Of course, Tier 3 and T4 racing on the Monday night, I race in Tier 4, so I must admit, every Thursday night I come in looking to see what these guys are doing and looking to see what the tips and tricks are. And I must admit, at this stage, I hope none of the Tier 4 guys are listening. I'm going to be going for a nice little undercut. It's definitely seems to be working out for Rudy. For Jaime as well. Jaime, he was sitting adrift in about P9. Now he's on for effectively what is a net P3, of course. 2.5 seconds to Jeroen behind, so he's not going to have DRS. And he's got 5-6 cars, all the way from Relentless Nathan. It's a relentless sandwich there. You've got the full smorgasbord of what you want. Do you want a bit of cheese? Do you want a bit of meat? Do you want a bit of urine? Do you want Ferg, Peas, Vouter? What do you want? You've got all of them there, and they're all going to be battling each other, going back and forth, losing a bit of time on each other.
I love P is very, very good for you indeed. Very nice picture there. Yeah, so Seaboard Gamer has pitted. There's a yellow flag in that last set. So that is a Williams of Liam Corrag. Not mentioned him ever since he had his accidents earlier on, but he's also spun again coming out the Puddlesby corner, and that's a shame for him. Our pole sister just keeps dropping down and down. I'm not sure if it's a setup issue at all, but it looks like it. But previously, Nathan JB, Mark picked up a 3-second time penalty. Somebody else did. That was Walter. Walter also picked up a 3-second time penalty. AJ set the fast lap. Liam retires in the pit lane, so it doesn't cause any safety car to interrupt or ruin anybody else's races. But I was going to say, yeah, Nathan overtook Giant previously, and now Giant is all over the back of him because Nathan used a lot of ERS on the last lap to try and get past Giant, and Giant then right behind Nathan. You can see Nathan derating on the straight. Giant knows that he's running low on the ERS, and he goes on him. Doesn't even use ERS himself, does Giant? Just pure overpace and speed, and back down the inside he goes of Nathan JB. Peas also overtakes Ferg. Ahead, there he is, up into P5. So Jeroen, Vizor, and Peas continuing their battles. And one thing we didn't mention is that Walter actually got jumped by Peas in the pit lane because he was ahead of Peas before the pit lane. He got jumped by him, so Peas get a really good pit stop and rejoining ahead of the Haas driver.
Absolutely, yeah, that's a good point there. He lost out to Peas on the pit stop mix-up, and then also losing out to Ferg. Ferg, of course, pitting a lap earlier and getting the undercut, so he was right in the tail of Jeroen, and just having those two cars behind is now about a second adrift, and his worries and his pains just getting added to on with that 3-second time penalty. It's really not going to help his race in the long run. This group of cars caught up to Nathan and Jaime fairly quickly, surprisingly. Just, I suppose, that extra little bit of life in the tyres, and of course all these guys, really good drivers. I imagine some of them might even be talking to each other, just let's not battle too hard, lads. Like we all know, we've got a lot of race left to fight here. There's no point wasting time at the moment when we can battle for the win later on, maybe. Potential with that. Really though, a 1.4 second gap at the front. If he can manage that gap and make sure that the guys behind stay out of DRS, he's going to have an easy time here. Of course, it's an easy time sitting in a comms booth with your controller in hand with a nice little glass of your drink, sitting watching it and telling them how to do it. It's going to be another thing to keep that 1.5 second gap and keep that 1 second at least minimum gap for them. But only 8 laps to go here. Not a horrendous amount of time to do it. Keep the steady lap times and you don't need to go wild. And I suspect he's maybe saving up even a little bit of ERS and just using it whenever that time gets down, but he's not. He's abusing it just to keep it steady, which, you know, I can't fault that.
Hey to JB, Drew Vizor, they're all caught up to Jaime then. Jaime's got a 1.4 second. This could be his first podium appearance. Is Jaime. Hopefully he can get on the podium for his first time in this league race. But look at that, they're all back in the DRS train except Rudy, of course, because Rudy has pulled out a 1.4 second gap. Him and Jaime were the first people to pit in that train. Look what it's benefited them, first and second place. Also Nathan pitted 1 lap after. And look at that, Walter's gone down the inside of Ferg into turn 1, but Ferg gets a better exit at least. Walter still has track position. I think, will they go side by side? Not a place, will they go side by side? And Ferg wisely backs out of that one, otherwise casualties will be caused. But Walter then back ahead of Ferg, ready for this battle. And look at that, they have a DRS train behind Jaime there, so Jaime will be the one under pressure, but Nathan's struggling in those corners there. I wanted to mention the lap previous, where they are now. Jeroen Vizor and Total Peas went wide coming out of turn 9, and I think that'll cost him a warning, so they could be careful not to do that more than 1 or 2 times, otherwise they'll pick up a penalty with Jeroen and Peas. That could cost crucially because they're all tied together. To pick up a penalty, you can find yourself down the pecking order. But Nathan then going for a move on Jaime, back up into second place he goes. And will Jeroen Vizor follow? Could be careful not to hit the back of him. He tries to go around the outside. Judge Jeroen Vizor. Jaime keep a squeeze there, but down the inside goes Jeroen. Back on Jaime. And Jeroen gets a better exit. Here comes Total P. Oh, Jaime just swerved across there. And Mark's down the inside of Ferg. And Jaime stays ahead of Total P's. Meanwhile, further back, Mark and Ferg going side by side, but Ferg stays ahead of Mark. Mark desperately wants to overtake Ferg to stay in this battle at least, but Jaime under pressure there from Total P's. Will Total P's get Jaime into turn 1? Gets a better exit than him. He's behind him with DRS and slipstream. It looks like he'll go down the inside into turn 1. Jime defending the inside line, but down the inside goes Pease. Goes side by side. Who gets a better exit? And it'll be Pease. Look at that. Gets a much better exit. Then Jime, and up into P4 he goes. And really crucial for him to stay with Jeroen Visser. Jeroen Visser on the back of Nathan JB. And look at that. Nathan JB is 1.1 seconds out of DRS. So he'll be vulnerable down the straight with the lack of ERS he has. In fact, he's slightly in that DRS of Rudy, just 1 second. Can he get himself in that 9/10 gap? No, he can't. We just crossed the DRS zone. And Nathan JB will be vulnerable on the straight. Walter going down the inside of Jime into turn 11. They go side by side as they come out the corner now. Walter having the extra ERS advantage. In fact, Jime has the extra ERS advantage. But look at Jeroen Visser overtaking Nathan JB. And here comes Pease also following. Down the inside he goes. And look at that. Look who's ahead of us. Rudy. Rudy will be under pressure with Jeroen and Pease having a much fresher tyres as Walter gets ahead of Jime. And down the inside goes Relentless Nathan on Mark. So there's plenty of battles going on in the field. I think the people who undercut him first are now suffering towards the end with the soft tyres slightly being disadvantaged towards the guys who've pitted very late. That's the benefit. The undercut is powerful, but it could hurt you towards the later parts of the race, like you said, Scott.
Absolutely, the tyre's starting to go off, it seems, on these guys that pitted early. A few laps doesn't sound like a lot, but it can really take the skin off those tyres. And you start to get down to the worst sort of, not grade, but the worst sort of thickness of the rubber, and it just doesn't heat up nicely. It overheats slightly, and it just becomes a wee bit more uncomfortable and not quite as steady to drive. And as a result, you lose a little bit of time here, a little bit of time there. Thing to note as well, Rudy, I thought that gap would last a lot longer than it did, but it seems to be Jeroen, Pease, Nathan not so much until this lap here. Of course, they're having DRS in each other, ERS and slipstream. They can sort of use that to effect almost slingshot themselves up the field and close that gap. Now, it's a famous saying, I suppose. It's one thing to catch, it's another thing to overtake. Of course, Rudy, he's now going to have to give it everything. What's he like on ERS? He's only at 20%. He's not much lower than Jeroen, but the key thing is he is lower, and Jeroen is going to have the assist of that ERS. Pease is going to follow him right on through, and Rudy sees his 1.4 second lead drop to a 6th, 7th, 10th deficit to P1 and 2 position deficit, because he's down in P3 now, thanks to that assist of the DRS and slipstream. Now, getting to the business end here of this race here, we're seeing how vulnerable the guy in first is. Maybe. Go on.
Look at Walter. He had a much beautiful exit around the outside. Now coming to triple right-hander here. Nathan tried to cling on to 4th place or 5th place. Down the inside goes Nathan. He goes side by side down the place. You don't want to go side. Oh, they made contact there. Thankfully, nobody. Oh, Nathan just hit the back of him. Just outbroke himself. He might pick up a little bit of front wing damage. I'm not quite sure, but we'll find out as Walter has to go off the track. Nathan weaving there to say sorry. Possibly he knows it's his mistake, but yeah, we'll find out if Nathan then has front wing damage due to the contact at the back of Walter.
Jime making a little bit of contact there with Nathan, just sorry to jump in. Getting turning a bit more from a DRS train into here to a nice good old game of dodgems, it seems.
Yeah, looks like Nathan has got foot damage. You can see him understeering in this first sector. Yep, he's definitely got foot damage. Around the outside goes Jime. Nathan then will be a sitting duck in these corners, and Relentless Nathan goes down the inside of Relentless Ferg. But Ferg takes the place back, and Nathan going off the track is all over the place. He might have to give way to everybody because he'll be in people's way effectively. Nathan picks up a 3-second time penalty, trying to go around the outside of Ferg. Relentless Nathan's behind. Robbie's behind. Oh, make contact with Nathan on the lost traction quit out of 10-11 that allowed. And look at that, Pease then goes back into the lead ahead of Jeroen. It's Pease's first time in the lead. And have they crashed on the straight? Oh, Marcus spun on the straight. And Relentless Nathan as well. Relentless Nathan has full wind damage. He's lost all of it. And they both made contact on the straight, like Pastor Maldonado and Adrian Sittel back in 2013.
Yeah, Mark making contact as well. He's losing his full front wing in that contact as well. I wonder if it was a similar situation to Relentless Nathan and Nathan JB. The tyres sort of just locking with each other, and we see it happen all the time with the physics model in the game, that once you get those tyres locked, unless both drivers are completely on it, it's very, very tricky to keep the car. Both Nathan and Nathan doing very well to avoid it the first time, but I wonder if something happened between Mark and Relentless Nathan. Valter going down the inside of Rudy. Big shame for him, but of course, knowing Valter's got that 3-second penalty, Rudy won't really be caring too much. He won't be fighting it too hard. He'll be thinking, I'll just slit onto you, get that DRS, get that slipstream, and we'll just hold this out for a podium. Big shame for Nathan JB though. I know we spoke to him the last week. He was very excited, very enthusiastic about his first podium, in about 2 seasons, having it snatched away by a sneaky steward report about cutting the pit lane entry. I'm getting all the first letters right, but just not the words right here tonight, Jamie. I do apologise for it, but Nathan,
we all make mistakes.
we certainly all do, and one big one there was, of course, the relentless gate, shall we say, the crash on the straight. Very interesting one, but my heart does bleed a little bit for Nathan JB. He does seem to be continuing on. I don't think he has pit, so whether he's just thinking it's not worth losing the time, or whether it was maybe just a bad run of corners, but I would say with the time he has lost, something's definitely up with that car.
It's a shame for him. Might as well continue. There's no point pitting, and somebody has spun, and that was relentless Nathan. But I want to Head Bompier also spun as well the previous lap before. While all that was going on, I saw a yellow flag and I went on board with Head Bompier. Sadly, he spun the car around in that third sector as well. But Walter just outside the 1 second range of DRS towards Javu Vizza. So Total P is there looking his first win of the season due to being so unlucky in Australia and in Monza due to no fault of his own whatsoever. So hopefully he can kick things off and forget all about that and just come back very strong with a race win. He's got Javu Vizza, a championship contender in P2 ahead of his championship rival. C4 Gamer goes down. Oh, Robbie spun out of turn 1. That's his second spin in the race. I just saw an Aston Martin just spin. Well, that was Nathan, but that's actually Robbie. And sadly for him, he's lost his end plate. So both Aston Martins having a bad race here. And he spun again.
Spun it again, getting back straight on the track. Sorry to jump in. He's tried to get the car going straight again. Just the hot tyres. It's just went round the other way. And he currently finds down in P14. Not the race he would have hoped for. Having a few mistakes here. He had such good pace. He's had such good pace all season. And it just isn't going his way. Consistency, of course. You need the pace, but you need the consistency to be able to get it down week in, week out. And that's the difference between the good drivers and the great drivers in this season and previous seasons gone by. One to keep an eye on, though, Jamie, is Jaime. Jaime currently in P5 with no pens. Wouter and Rudy both in front with 3 second pens. Now, the gap to Wouter currently sitting at about 3.4 seconds. It is increasing slightly, so maybe a podium unlikely, but P4 definitely on the cards here when he needs to keep within the 3 seconds of. And that's commentator's curse, isn't it not? Jaime spinning at the final corner. If he is listening in or he does watch us back, I really do apologise, mate. I hope that had nothing to do with the old commentator's curse, but I can't help feel very guilty for that one.
So it looks like a battle then between Javoon and Pease, because Walter's just dropped outside that 1 second range of DRS, 1.4 now, so also has got a penalty. So this race victory will belong to Javoon or Pease, and hopefully then we'll see a good ding-dong battle between these two. These two fighting last season for P2 in the championship. Javoon Vizza had the edge on Total Pease, but Total Pease came back at him and claimed P2 in the end. They had a fantastic battle back in Bahrain, fighting for the race win. And here they are doing the same thing again. And here comes Javu Vizza then, choosing the inside line. On the previous lap time, he backed off. He was in a position to overtake Total Pease, but he decided to stay behind him. And he's made his move on lap 27 then. So Total Pease will be saving up that battery store, ready to attack for the final lap, looking to try and get his first win of the season then. So that'll be very interesting between these two then. Who will win this race? Will it be Javu Vizza and Total Pease? Got to watch out for penalties, of course, because I know these two have exceeded track limits a few times. One more for them could be over for them in terms of race wins. But further on, we saw a battle between, I think it was To Griff and Stardy. Stardy get ahead of To Griff there, or To Griff get ahead of Stardy there. But on to the final lap there between Javu Vizza and Total Pease then. When will Total Pease decide to use that ERS? Probably use it on the back straight, because he's not using it now. He's trying to save up as much as he can, ready to pounce into turn 12.
Both of them interesting, both with near enough identical ERS. You're using a little bit out of turn 1 there, just get a better exit, I suppose. Get the throttle down and the speed into the S is a bit better. Fun little fact for you though, I don't know how this has happened. I must have got my clairvoyance out before this race started. I was in a party with quite a few of these drivers here Of course, we've got quite a good community here on CRL. A lot of the guys chatting outside of race weeks, outside of race nights, sorry, outside of practice sessions, and just having a very chill sort of atmosphere amongst ourselves.
Oh, it was lost it out of that corner, turn 11, and this is where Total P's will capitalise on that mistake. And there he is there, Giroux has run out of EOS, and he's derated down the straight, and Total P's then retakes the lead of this race. Has Giroux attacked too early on the previous lap, but Berg goes down the inside of Rudy then, and Giroux then just needs to keep it, Total P's needs to keep it nice and clean in his final sector, to not pick a penalty, not lose the car, and he'll be on his way then to win his first race of the season then, to kick things off after a disappointing, miserable first 2 races due to no fault of his own. But he'll be back to win this race, and here he is then coming towards the penultimate corner. This is a place where you can pick up a penalty as well. Now coming towards the final corner, keep it nice and clean, and there he is then. Total P's will come across the line to win the USA Grand Prix ahead of Giroux Vizza. Walter claims P3. Berg will come across the line to finish in P4. Rudy P4. Seaval Gamer had a 10-second time penalty, I believe. I think not quite sure what happened there.
Yeah,
but
I'm not too sure. Team 10-second time penalty for exceeding track limits comes home in P6, but that'll drop quite a bit. I wonder if he sort of lost it around the fast right-hander and then maybe cut the second to last.
He ran out of fuel, it seems, on the before the last corner, so I'm not quite sure what he was doing in that final 2 corners, getting a 10-second time penalty, indicating he cut a lot of it. But well done to Total P's there to claim the victory. Where did he start? He started down in P6, so it's a P6 to P1. Has done a fantastic job, and he'll be very happy despite the 2 difficult races we've experienced in the first and second race, where he got collected in an incident that wasn't his fault. But yeah, he's done a fantastic job to recover back into P1. Giroux, crucially, I think he's taken the championship lead ahead of Walter now. So I think he's the championship leader, is that, if I'm correct?
Yeah, it will be the one point between them going into this race. Of course, I'm just checking the fastest lap here to see if that'll have any impact on it. Oh, well, there you go. There's my answer right there. Robbie stealing that point away from anybody that may have had it. Of course, Jeroen in the point system going to get 33 points. Wouter only going to get 28, which will see Jeroen take a 4-point trophy gap at the top, potentially, if Stewarden doesn't have anything to do it. Fun little fact to you, I was just before, I maybe timed it wrong, trying to say this on the last lap with all the action going on. I spoke to a lot of these guys before the race, included these 3 in the podium, and I said to them as a joke, oh, I think it's going to be these 3 on the podium. And I got told, well, I won't be speaking to you for a few weeks because I won't be anywhere near a podium. So, just goes to show you, maybe a little bit of good prediction on my part, maybe a little bit of underconfidence from some of the drivers, but it is a P's Jeroen Wouter podium. The sort of Bottas, Hamilton, Verstappen podium of CRL, I must admit, these days, very, very common. Of course, P's taking the W in that Mercedes. P6 to P1, a very, very good drive. Jeroen, P4 to P2 in the Williams, and Wouter in P3 for Haas from P2 in the grid. Rudy, Ferg, Jaime, your 4th, 5th and 6th. Jaime, what a race it could have been. That unfortunate spin at the final corner really dampening his hopes. 17 seconds of drift off the lead. Probably wasn't going to win the race, but that podium spot definitely could have been his. Jay Lawler starting P10 on the sauce. The alternate strategy effectively here compared to what everybody else was doing. Making a good, solid performance. Not really seen much of him. He run his own race. But P7, solid points for Red Bull. Nathan JB, P8 despite that damage late on. Seeb, P9, Marty P10, Tigriff, Bimpy, Steiny, AJ Wuhan, Mark, Nathan, Robbie, rotation, the last of your finishers, with Liam, Carrick and Andreas, your DNFs. I just about got everybody in there, Jamie.
Yeah, that was a fantastic race indeed. Very nice to watch. I didn't expect the outcome of it. I was hoping Robbie could get a podium, and Liam on his debut there to get a fantastic result. It could be a case of forgetting to turn your tyre temperatures down, because I've done that sometimes where a track like this, you have to turn your tyre temperatures down. Maybe in qualifying you want the tyre temperatures full to get maximum performance, but during the race you have to turn them down. That could be a factor as well. Some people could have forgotten to turn the tyre temperature down. A track like this where tyre overheats a lot.
Yeah, definitely. That it seems, seems as if it's almost nothing. You know, turning those pressures down to help with the temperatures, but over the course of 28 laps it can really mean the difference between having a great race, having a good race, and having an absolutely horrendous race. Just how differently it affects the tyres, how the grip level changes. It's a major factor, and maybe that was key here. Maybe of course some of them going for a slightly wetter setup, some going for a slightly drier setup. Maybe seen how, you know, the only person that really finished near the, you know, bang on one position out of their qualifying was Valter in P3, dropping from P2, but we all know how consistent, Mr. Consistent he is in this league. That's why, of course, he is the defending champion. He's got the pace and the consistency, but overall, potentially, best race we've had this season. Maybe a lot of action, despite the DRS train. I think these races are getting better and better each week though, Jamie, and I'd love to see that.
Yep, I do. I think they are getting better, like you said, and I can't wait for them upcoming races.
Definitely. Speaking of upcoming races, we go to the lovely, lovely circuit all the way down in the South Americas. It is, of course, the Autodrome Jose Carlos Pace. As if I could say all the Spaniards. It's Brazil, yes. 10 out of 10 in the trivia there, Jamie. As if I could say all the Spanish words, but I failed at pace. It'll host round 5 next Thursday, of course, on the 17th of February. Round 5 of 15. It'll mark the third stage, the first third of the calendar gone and dusted. Seems like only yesterday we started off the season, but of course, not long flying by when we're having so much fun.
Just goes too bloody quick, you know what I mean? Just like, all of a sudden it's Thursday again, and we're here again in the commentary booth, just witnessing another fantastic race. It's just time flies by these days. Like Sebastian Vettel said, you got to remember these days.
Got to remember these days, they do not last forever. Indeed, it is one of those things. The races seem to fly by, and you're constantly looking forward to next Thursday during the season. But once it hits the off season, I don't know about you, I get a little bit of, shall we say, the off season blues. I'm just desperate to get back in the comms booth, back in the behind the wheel, and have some fun with it. But a long season still to go, of course. Brazil up next week, then the week after that, Silverstone for the second sprint race. Those that didn't catch us last week, you missed an absolute treat with this sprint race format. Very, very different format. One shot qualifying, 25% race, and then the 50% feature race. Really spices things up. It's a longer, more endurance race for the drivers, of course. Some of them, maybe that would go out in Q1, don't have the same gap that they had before they're back in the track, so maybe they don't lose the sort of practice in, but at the same time you're doing effectively a 75% race with a 10-minute gap in the middle. I know when I did it last week, my actual left wrist, predominantly steer with my left hand for some reason, is actually a bit sore, so it can maybe affect some of these drivers a bit more than others, or maybe I'm just a little bit weak-wristed. We'll leave that up to debate. But we'll see. Have we got any of our drivers in for a little podium chat? Of course, it is a different system or use the game. We do. We have our number 1 and our number 2. We'll start off then. Peas, my good friend. How are you doing, mate? How are you feeling after that race?
Excellent.
I can only imagine why. P1 from, I believe, P4 it was. P6, sorry, P6. Excellent drive. I suppose I'll start off. You pulled the trigger sort of the same time as the rest of the guys in the top 5, obviously. Was there never any fear about the guys undercutting? Of course, we know how strong it is. We've seen the sort of gap they pulled out, or did you have confidence in the fresher tyres, even with the guys round about you, that it wasn't going to be too much to overhaul?
I knew that if the guys who pit so early, their tyres would just drop, which they did because they fell off the pace so much. So I knew we'd catch and be fine, because and that showed at the end of it, because like we caught the whole train and we got past them and then they got dropped again, showing how powerful the fresh tyres were. But that whole situation was helped by Ferg not making my life hard, and Valter's pit crew for being slow and letting me jump him in the pits as well. So it was good.
So you must be feeling a bit of redemption, of course. First round in Australia, having an unfortunate incident, shall we say, scoring no points with a retirement. But back-to-back podiums, a 1 and I believe it was a 2 last week, am I right in saying?
2 weeks ago. Last week I had the safety car incident.
Oh yes, of course. Two
What
in
was the second
two in
place?
France and then Italy. The second podium though of the season. Good running. We always knew going into the season you're going to be a title contender. You're definitely showing that. I'm not sure how that'll do for the standings, but how are you feeling about next week? I suppose Brazil pad track. We know you're on the pads. You must be pretty confident.
Confident, but it's a train. Like there's going to be like 10 people in contention because it's just overtaking, and you can pretty much save battery by the straight again. So it's just going to be whoever's in the right position on the second to last lap.
Playing the long game then for next week. Jamie, I'll hand it over to you, mate. You've got the more technical, insightful questions than me. I'm more of the waffle guy here, so I'll let you delve deep into the minds of Mr. Total Peas.
Yeah, Total Peas. So you talked about how the undercut was powerful, but also the tyres dropped off. So I don't have anything to say really. Pretty much answered up my questions, but I just want to say a fantastic drive, a bit of redemption, like you say, because I know you struggle. Well, not struggle. You've been in unfortunate situations in Australia and Monza, so congrats to be back at the top step, and hope to see you do well again in the next few races. So keep smiling, Peas.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Those an OPs know he's always smiling, and he's always smiling on himself and smiling back at you. Congratulations, Peas, on your win tonight, and I can't wait to speak to you again in the future. No doubt we'll see at some point. But we'll move on to Mr. P2. Of course, his second time, I believe, in the chat, or maybe his third time actually, in the podium box here. A win last week in Monza in the feature race, and at P2 today over his title rival Valtteri sees him go 4 points clear at the top after, or before Sturden, shall I say. Jeroen, how are you feeling after that race, mate? So close to the end, losing it out just by less than a second to Peas with that final lap move, but still must be happy with 33 points and a P2 on the board.
Yeah, no. In the end, I'm quite happy with P2. Of course, I wanted to win, but
Later.
yeah, this track like P Valdo today, all the pace over me. So yeah, to finish P2 is quite a decent result. Damage limitation and leading the championship, of course, which for the first time. So let's bottle it. Let's bottle it next week. Let's say that.
I suppose I'll ask you a similar question that I asked Peas. Of course, you're on the wheel, Mr. Fanatec himself, Fanatax, shall we say? A little bit of banter we like to go with. How are you feeling about Brazil?
Yeah, I'm not as well there. Like I'm not the quickest, but I'll be in the front train. And it's you never know who wins there. It's just gonna be overtaking in the train, saving, but everyone with a full battery is it's just you have to overtake at the right moment and be up there. So let's see who will be up there.
Absolutely. As well, we know, well, I know, and a lot of the guys will know, you're very good at getting your car set up. Did that have a sort of impact, having the mixed between inter and wet conditions in the dry race? Did that sort of affect your setup, what you initially planned for if everything was dry, or did you just stick things out, or was there some minor tweaks going on at the start of quali?
Yeah, I really didn't change anything for quali, but the problem I had, I was running 11:10, where the rest were running 10:11, so I couldn't go max wings for quali. So I had to run 11:10 for quali, and they could have a 11 rail wing. So it was not ideal, but the 10 wasn't that bad. I'm just happy to be at the top 4, and from then I could move in the race.
Absolutely, of course, that 10 rear wing, for those that know it, 10 rear wing versus 11 rear wing gives you a little bit less downforce, particularly through the faster speed corners, but it gives you a little bit more top speed on the straights. Jamie, I'll hand it over to you again, mate. You're always good with the last final questions.
You're now the championship leader during visit. How do you feel, mate?
Yeah, good. To the streak I've been getting now after the DNF is good, and I hope to continue it.
Absolutely, you'll be looking to keep the ball rolling, get another one on the board next week in Brazil. Though you're not feeling too confident with it, I know the ability you've got. Of course, it is a tight grid, anything can happen, but I'd be surprised if we don't see you up there in the top 10, if not the top 5, and I wish you all the best for the coming season. It's really hotting up to be a good championship battle already. Lots of guys in contention for podiums and wins, but you're the one that seems to be at the early stage, making your mark on it. It's not like last season where Valtteri had multiple P2s. Again, this is another week where he hasn't featured on a podium officially at the end of the race. Of course, jumping in there with Pens last week, but you're really coming into your own as a driver, I'd say, with that extra bit of consistency. And it's a pleasure to watch you guys battling every week, I must say. But I think we'll leave it there, Jamie. Doesn't seem as if Mr. Voutart fancies a chat with us. Whether that's out of upsetness at losing his championship lead, or whether he just can't join for personal reasons. Either way, I think we'll round things off. Once again, it's been an absolute pleasure to be your commentator and watch this race alongside everybody here in the chat. Thank you all for joining us, of course. There would be no sense with CRL, as much as we love racing. We love racing and bringing it to you guys, showing you guys the real ability we have here in this grid and all our grids across all 4 divisions. It really is a treat. I encourage you to watch every race you can, and really push on and see what you can do. I feel as if I've made a slight mistake here as well with something with the overlay. I really hope I haven't. Oh, I have. Oh, I don't know how long they've been looking at the calendar. Oh, I hope not too long. I think, oh no, it's not been too long, it was after the race. Oh, Jamie, I had that before. Anybody that stayed to watch this long, well, and has watched me in the past, don't know this panic. I did this before. We did half a race when I did Tier 4 last season, where we just looked at the point system. Oh, you've no idea how hard my heart just dropped there. Because what a race we had, and if we just had the calendar up for all that, I don't think I could live with myself. But on that note, I suppose we'll round things off for the final time. Thank you all for joining us. Most importantly, though, for joining me, thank you, Jamie. It's always a pleasure to have you in the comm box beside me. Your insight, your knowledge, of course, you've commed over these guys for donkeys. You've raced with these guys and at the top level. Such a class driver and an amazing commentator. It's a pleasure to have somebody in the box beside me as talented as yourself, and I'm really looking forward to the rest of the season with you, mate.
Appreciate that very much, mate. Thank you so much.
It's absolute pleasure of mine. A pleasure of mine, of course, to be the voice of CRC Tier 1. But that is all for me tonight, folks. Make sure, though, to check back on the CRL channel. Our Tier 2 stream kicked off at 7:30, so there is a little bit of an overlap. So if you're watching us tonight, you've obviously missed the Tier 2 race, and from what I hear, it was an absolute cracker as well. Potential for some good results for one particular team. But to find out what actually happened in it, you're going to have to go back and watch and tune in for all that action with our lovely hosts, Hedgehog11 and Jonathan in that booth. But make sure to tune back on the channel next Monday, 7:30 PM, sees our Tier 3 drivers take to the Circuit of Americas. 8 PM sees our Tier 4 drivers take to the circuit. And if you want to see your favourite commentator in place, I'm sure that's me, of course. Or if it is, of course, Hedgehog11, if you tune into the Tier 2 stream. You can catch both of us on that, as well as 38 other amazing drivers here at CRL. I have been your host, CRL Freefall. Make sure to join me and Jamie back here the same time, the same place next Thursday to see our Tier 1 boys, the very best of the best in CRL, take to Brazil as the championship continues for round 5. Thank you all for joining us, and have a very, very good Thursday night and a very, very good weekend.